live. Hello everybody and welcome to Encounter Roleplay. My name is Will and today we are back and we're back with Table Talk and talking about tables. No, actually it's more about Dungeons & Dragons and other tabletop role-playing games. But tables might be on the agenda too. I'm actually not on my desk alone, I'm on my kitchen table. So we can talk about that if we want. But let's go and meet our host and guest for today. So we have Valonda back today. How's it going, Valonda?
Hi, I'm Valonda.
Hi, Valonda.
Hi, Valonda. It's
going really well today. I'm having a whale of a time. It could be because I've had slightly too much cola soft drink, but we're going to be good. It's going to be great.
Sponsored by... Fantastic.
Sponsored by Cola-y soft drink.
And we have Josh back today. Zeroxis the Beard. How's it going, my friend?
Doing good, man. Doing good. How are you?
I'm well. Yeah, I'm well. I'm excited. A lot of exciting things happened over the weekend, I guess. Yeah, it was a weekend.
Yes.
I know what days it is. For D&D, and that's what we'll start today's chats about, I suppose. So there's two big releases that are coming out for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition this year. It sounds like I'll show you guys on the stream in case you have missed the news, which is pretty difficult to have missed the news if you follow me on Twitter. But the Tomb of Annihilation is going out, and Xanathar's Guide to Everything. And this book, we can only assume that every single thing is inside this book, so that's pretty exciting. But let's start with Tomb of Annihilation. Now, I know Valonda is our kind of test subject idiot who doesn't know anything about it today, so that's good. But me and Josh have been checking out some of this stuff. So, First of all, I guess we should talk a little bit about what it is. And it's a new book out, set in the Forgotten Realms in the land of Cult. And if you've heard of the Tomb of Horrors, or if you've played in the Tomb of Horrors, and some of this cover might seem a little bit familiar to you. Why, you may ask? Because it's basically the same. They've replaced one word as well.
Yeah, pretty much.
So they can afford the extra letters after horror. They're like, do you know what? We'll keep the H. Yeah. We'll buy some extra letters. We've got this.
Add in a couple of other N's in there, maybe an O. And that's how we'll get started. Yeah. So Tomb of Annihilation seems like to be maybe a reimagining, or certainly inspired by the Tomb of Horrors. And Esorerak, the legendary lich, is back because it seems like Wizards really just can't get enough of Esorerak. And it's understandable. He's a iconic villain, I suppose. But it's set in a jungle world, the jungles of Cult. And there's dinosaurs, undead dinosaurs going around with Esorerak, and it's been described as
an undead dinosaur.
Yeah, you
That's
can.
Amazing. Can we be riding an undead T-Rex or something, or a Stegosaurus? That would be amazing.
Yes, you can. In this new book, it seems like it's also it's been described by Mike Merles as Indiana Jones meets zombies. So that sounds like a perfect movie to me. So yeah, kind of like Tomb of Horrors, but a whole campaign, I guess. Hype undead Stegosaurus. Granolosaurus, yeah. Esorerak.
Shut up, Will.
So yeah, it sounds exciting. I guess what's your first impression, I guess, Valonda, first of all, seeing as you've heard nothing about it beforehand, really.
Yes.
How exciting
the extent I had was seeing your Twitch about it, I think yesterday or something, I don't know. I've always liked the idea of the Tomb of Horrors, about how, and heard nothing but horror stories of how awful it is, and that was confirmed when we were talking about Tomb of Horrors on Saturday. I'm interested to see how they've changed it across and see whether it fits into the new system, really. I think that kind of, it just sounds like a skin change or a mechanic change, really.
Well, yeah.
I kind of like the artwork. Also, I think they need to make a push for creature names and lich names that I can pronounce. Because it'd be really hard for me to run this because I'll just have to call him Steve.
Right. Yes, it took me a while as well.
Exactly, yeah.
I call him DJ Phylactery. That's easier.
Okay, that makes more sense.
What about you, Josh? First impressions, I guess.
So what it reminds me of is like the old school modules of, it was more based on just ridiculous adventures to go on and so it could be crazy hard to do. Like Tomb of
Yeah.
Horrors, as an example, like the fact that it's a similar title makes me think that a lot of people are going to die in this, which brings me to like the meat grinder mode. So, Belanda, there's now a new mechanic called meat grinder mode, where the DC for death saving throws is bumped to 15.
Oh, holy Hannah!
Yeah, so death is a lot more possible. It gives it a little bit more of a thrill, and definitely makes it a lot more challenging.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that, especially going from like we're playing Curse of Strahd right now to go to this very crazy world filled of like dinosaurs and Huan Ti, and it seems like a nice change of pace, and definitely a different feel than what we've seen so far.
I guess also with this kind of, as you say, meat grinder mode, where the DC for like death saving throws is 15, I think it kind of makes death way more possible, rather than at the moment like, hey, it's a 10, you get hit, it's a 10, or you can like sort of like circumnavigate the whole death thing in a D&D, which is a whole separate issue for me, and we'll put it over to one side. But I don't know, I think upping the DC, that makes it a lot more interesting. You have to be a lot more careful, rather than it's okay if I die, my mate will res me with Revivify or something. It's
Right.
There's only a certain amount of Revivifies you have spell slots for.
I really don't mind the death saving throw increase. I wouldn't mind that as a house rule anyway, because I feel like the death saving throws are really, really easy if you have a cleric around. And there's so much healing in the game already, it feels like, for spellcasters, that I think a DC 15 isn't unreasonable as a house rule. I wouldn't be upset about it if a DM that I was playing in a game with says that is how his game is anyway. And it doesn't necessarily, to me, feel meat grindery. So I'm wondering if there are other rules involved in this meat grinder mode as well, because just upping a death saving throw doesn't seem like a whole new game mode for me. It seems like a part of a new game mode, you know?
Yeah, I think it just makes it more like if you're playing something like Fallout and you go into hardcore mode, it just makes death way more possible than it did before.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I know what you're saying about the whole like there's way too much healing. But I mean, essentially anyone who's got healing word can just say something. They don't have to be in melee contact. They can just say something and the person will be healed up with like 1 hit point. So
Right.
I mean, as long as you have a round and they don't get hit, you can probably get them back on their feet, unless your DM is particularly evil and wants to kill you outright. So.
Depending on the game, I'll play a rule where your death saving fails will continue over. So if you go down and you fail one and then you come back up again, then the next time you go down you still have one death saving fail on your counter. It does seem quite, I mean, maybe it's just some of the games that I've been running, but it just seemed like there's a lot of up and down in combat sometimes.
It's like, you're unconscious, you're back up. You're unconscious, you're back up.
Yeah.
Especially because people don't tend to play that aspect. Getting knocked out is actually, in real life, a really dangerous thing, because it's it's something that's happened in your brain to literally go, and blue screen. So that's actually not a good thing, and nobody ever plays that well. Like if someone goes unconscious, you should be worried. I'm like, don't worry, I'll just get them back up again.
Yeah.
Or, hey, they died, we've just got them back up again. Like, people don't roleplay that aspect particularly well. At least that's what I found. So.
Yeah, I mean,
it's interesting.
What I wouldn't mind as well, I mean, this is going a little bit off kilter as well, but a house rule where healing allows you to roll another save to get back up again. You know, maybe a DC 10, DC 15 save. You get healing worded, your hit points may go up.
With healing word, I think for sure, because healing word is literally a D4. Or D4 plus whatever your wisdom or your charisma, whatever you're rolling it with. But that's really interesting. I quite like that. I'd run with that.
Yeah, interesting. So Fan says 10 as default, increasing a game's difficulty would make most casual gamers turn away. I don't think so. I don't think the difficulty of D&D has anything to do with why people play D&D. I don't think it's like a video game in that aspect where if you're constantly failing, because the thing with D&D is that all the rules are optional.
Yes, don't tell the GM or the players they don't actually need rules.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, if you don't like it, just change it back to 10.
I think if anything, the meat grinder mode...
Nobody's going to know.
Yeah, I mean the meat grinder mode is probably getting more people involved. You know, potentially from older editions that find the game perhaps too easy. And I know certainly for those who have played the game for some time as well and found those problems with the game, it's going to be refreshing for me to play with those rules. And I don't think it would ever dissuade me from playing in a game, unless it was, this is a real meat grinder and you're going to die 10 times, and maybe that isn't fun.
I think from what I've heard of Tomb of Horrors, that is what happens.
And that is fun in Tomb of Horrors. You know, that's the idea of the game usually.
Yeah, so if you know that going in, then I'd totally be up for like having exactly the same character sheet and just changing the name occasionally. It's like, well, next one, because then I don't have to remember what to add to my rolls all the time. And mainly because I'm quite lazy.
When I ran Tomb of Horrors for some of the Taking Initiative guys and some other people for Halloween last year, and what I had them do was roll up 3 level 10 characters each. So as soon as their character died, they would just pull in their next character, and they would be able to continue on. So that way, they didn't feel like left out, kind of. So there's ways to kind of pad the adventure to help your group out, but also make it seem incredibly dangerous at the same time. And there's people who just died in just one shot through that dungeon. It is awful. But it was a lot of fun to do. Be like, okay, your characters just rip it up, done. Which is what Perkins did on the stream. Was when someone died in the meat grinder mode, he would rip up their character sheets.
I saw the remnants of that on Twitter. I'm like, what the hell is that? That makes a lot more sense. That explains that. Yeah.
He's just like, yes, this felt good. Nice. Next one up, please.
I don't think I could ever be that evil as a GM unless you were running something like this.
Right.
If they've been playing for like 10 years of the same character, you think, we'll go do Tomb of Horrors, we'll see what happens, and then rip up their shit. I'll be like, my God, my heart, I can't deal with this.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I mean, I really don't see, you know, having a grasp on the game and the groups that I play with, groups being highly dissuaded from ever picking up the game because they've heard of a meat grinder mode. I think D&D is very much seen as you get into it and you have fun because it's a game that you have fun in. And I've never, you know, personally looked at the difficulty of the game in terms of how hard it is to win a combat or, you know, play the game. You know, more difficulty I found in understanding what the game is and how to role play and stuff like that seems to be bigger hurdles for players. But I get what Rem says. He said, the only thing I would be worried about is that it might make party members min-max a bit and create too much of the optimal party, like the tank, healer, DPS, so on and so forth. I can see that happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
so is this like bringing back my idiocy mode? Is this set like a campaign, or is it just series? Here's a dungeon, walk into the dungeon. Here's another dungeon, walk. The traditional like dungeon delving idea.
It's described as a themed sandbox, so exploration is heavily emphasized.
Okay.
So it's definitely a campaign setting. From what Perkins was saying Thursday with you, Will, if I remember correctly, was it had a similar feel to how Curse of Strahd was in terms of like you have an area because it's like a peninsula or something you're on.
Yeah.
And you have boundaries, but you are able to explore a bit more, see what the peninsula has to offer you, and really take up the adventures that you want to and find the story within it yourself. So it's a little bit more lax, so that way DMs or players can do what they really want to do in that setting. But it's not just like, here's a dungeon, run it, here's a dungeon, run it.
Cool.
That was something,
I've never picked up a book like that, so I have no idea how they are written down.
One of the kind of, you know, slight criticisms of the Tales from the Yawning Portal was perhaps that it was just a series of encounters with ideas for stories, which was fine. And I think, you know, any DM can craft it into a cool story or series of stories in Tales from the Yawning Portal, but it does seem a bit more like a Curse of Strahd. This is a sandbox world, and here's some ideas for quests, but ultimately go where you want with it. And that's something I liked about Curse of Strahd, but something I also criticized somewhat more for beginner DMs, because it's very difficult to pick up a series of locations and to not have a really concurrent and easy grasp on where the plot is going. But with Storm King's Thunder, saw them laying that out much clearer, and I'd expect that of Tomb of Annihilation as well.
Yes,
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think the idea of a meat grinder mode, I really don't mind. And I think I like that idea of being able to turn it on and off. Like Rem's saying, you walk into a boss room, now we're in meat grinder mode, and oh shit, you know, look out. But the thing with meat grinder mode and any optional rules in D&D, or when you play Tomb of Horrors, everyone has to buy into the fact that your character could die, or your character is likely to die in a Tomb of Horrors. And Tomb of Annihilation, I imagine, is probably going to be not much different from that. You know, there is an understood kind of agreement between the players and the DM that things are going to get fucked up here. So I don't feel it's like as if the DM is being unfair and by using these rules, and the players are going to get, like, you know, butthurt about that. Because if I was playing in meat grinder mode, I'm ready to die, you know?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the name of the mod is Tomb of Annihilation. Like, it doesn't sound
Exactly.
good.
Doesn't sound good, does it?
No. So, like, expect to have a rough time.
Yeah.
But what we saw, like, on the stream yesterday and Friday was, I know they're, like, professional players, which still blows my mind. Like, that's even a thing, but it is, especially, you know, you guys as well, that you're still able to role play in these environments, even in these, like, tiny games where this mode is activated. You're still able to role play and play your characters, and it's okay if they, you know, die in battle as long as you're having fun doing it. Like, it's still a possibility to do, and that's not out the window, which is important.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's been said that there are going to be complex NPC interactions in this as well. So the fear that it's just going to be a tomb of horrors kind of redone again. I'm hoping it's not. You know, that something I mentioned to Perkins the other day is that something I criticize very heavily about 5th edition content is if they ever just rehash something. And that was one of my critiques of Yawning Portal, if not, you know, direct criticisms, is that perhaps I'd like to have seen new content as well. And I understand. I think it is great that Yawning Portal has been released so that older players can play the stuff that they used to, and newer players can experience that stuff as well, the kind of history of D&D. And I think that's been great that they did that with Yawning Portal. But now it does feel to me a little bit as if we've done that now, and I would like to see some potentially newer content. And you know, it's difficult for me to get my head around Tomb of Annihilation when it is one word different from Tomb of Horrors, and it is the same cover, basically the same artwork as Tomb of Horrors. I'm hoping I'll be, you know, pleasantly surprised by the content that is within, you know.
I don't mind like the rehashing, reskinning of stuff, like taking it, like I think emulation is probably a good idea when you take like Super Mario Brothers and you get it to play on your PC. That's great, I love it, but I still want new things.
Yeah, I agree.
So as much as this may be a rehash and a reskin into new mechanics, and they add a couple of new little tweaks, like I don't know, visual upgrades if you're going from computer world, but yeah, I do like to see newer stuff come out.
Yeah, I mean, they've done it with dinosaurs, and they've taken it to a new location, right? So it's not like it's not
a direct rip.
Yeah, it's not like it's Greyhawk, but done. It's, you know, it's definitely Forgotten Realms, going back to cults and a new jungle. I think it would be quite interesting to be in that kind of main jungle location, like environment for the campaign, because we've seen. You know, Ravenloft, we've seen Underdark done quite a lot, you know, so I think it'd be nice to go to a different locale and see what rules, you know, for plagues and horrible jungle critters that might be lurking about in there. So I'm definitely excited for that. And yeah, Edwin's saying a large part of it isn't actually within the tomb, it's within exploring the jungles as well. So yeah. It's not a huge location, I think was what Perkins said the other day. It's not as sprawling as like the realms in their entirety as in Storm King's Thunder. So it's more of a Curse of Strahd set piece. Yeah. The NPC interactions, how in depth? I don't know. There were claims on the stream was that they'd be quite in depth, but obviously we don't have the book before us yet, so we're speculating, but who knows?
Did they, I may have missed it because I caught the stream in and out, but did they say what the level range would be?
I don't have information down on that, so if someone in chat knows, they will know more than me.
That's one thing I'm curious about, is getting a module that will hit these higher levels, because we don't necessarily have that yet.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, if we don't know that information, I guess we could guess. And Tomb of Horrors in the past has been quite high level, and then Tales from the Yawning Portal, it was level 15, I want to say, or 10 to 15. I'd have to go and get it to check, but I'd imagine kind of mid-tier play at the very least for Annihilation. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see for that one. Doesn't seem like folks know. What's that go of it? Yeah, no, this is actually the 17th episode of Tomb of Annihilation. Random. Yeah, so obviously releasing on September 19th, global release, and September 8th release. So I mean, it's interesting to get another campaign story, and we'll be talking about the new player content as well. But I think it's no surprise that we do have another campaign story coming out from for 5th edition, which I'm not sad about. Honestly, I can't be upset about it.
No.
It definitely looks interesting, but with every book that comes out, I try not to buy into we were talking about this before. I try not to buy into the hype too much. I think it's very easy to be excited to be like, oh my god, dinosaurs, oh my god, undead, oh my god, lich, this is everything I want. And then sometimes, I've been a little bit disappointed in the past by some of these books that have been coming out. Out of the Abyss, I think, was one of those for me, where it was very, very hyped up at the beginning. The Drizzt kind of interactions in it, the whole Salvatore angle. Salvatore's been working very closely with us on this, and maybe that was cool, but ultimately didn't feel particularly crazy. It was like, at the end of the day, it was a book, and it was the Underdark. It's pretty much what I expected. So, Tomb of Annihilation, my fears would be that it basically feels like Tomb of Horrors, but with some dinosaurs on it. My hopes would be that it feels very new and different.
Yes.
So I think I'm a little cautious to be like, yes, this is the greatest thing ever. I'm much more excited, I have to say, for the player content. But whenever we talk about these things, I usually complain about the campaign content and the story stuff. But that's just me. But you didn't play much or any modules, right, Valanda?
No, I do not know.
Why is that?
I've only played Curse of Strahd myself.
Would Tomb of Annihilation tempt you in?
I honestly don't know. I just honestly don't know. As you may have noticed, I get rather attached to my characters, apart from which are definitely one-shot characters, in which case they can die eating peanuts. I'm not too worried about that.
Yeah.
I'm afraid that I'd probably end up running characters a lot like that, and they'd be really silly and over the top, and that would be it, and they'd be dead. And I don't think I'd get as much from role-playing out that, because that's not what I look for in a role-play. I try to go to a different place and a different set of people. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's probably not. I don't know. I'd have to watch. I'd have to watch a couple of sessions.
Yeah. What about the idea of meat grinder mode for your games, though?
I tend to do that kind of meat grindery one-shot thing when I need to take a break from properly role-playing.
Yeah.
As Josh will attest, when I ran my random one-shot, we were just like, we don't want to have the pressures of streaming or recording, and I don't want the pressures of having to come up with a backstory, and I can't be bothered with that today. I just want to kill things and roll dice. That for me, if I just need to take a massive break, then I'll do something along those lines. But I don't know. I'd have to be seriously. I think a lot of people would have to play it and tell me how it ends up being for them to actually consider whether I'd play.
I think honestly the most interesting thing for it, or from it, for me, would be the idea of a meat grinder mode, or just a harder difficulty mode, which is unique to maybe the setting, or just that you could place in any game. I think that would be quite interesting. Just any house rules or home rules that they have to implement into that. Also, apparently, there's a question on whether it's just Forgotten Realms. I mean, I watched my interview with Perkins. He did answer a couple of questions or hints about that, but mostly he said Forgotten Realms. But apparently it's not necessarily an island. The Tomb of Horrors is set on. It's an isolated peninsula, apparently. Yes. And it could fit into any campaign easily. Although I think it's meant for the Forgotten Realms, because everything that they do at the moment is Forgotten Realms based. But as with Tales from the Yawning Portal, you could fit it into Greyhawk, you could fit it into your own homebrew worlds. Oops, I am dropping things.
I mean, to be honest, you can just change the names. Hey, you haven't explored the peninsula of Steve's Wake or something, and suddenly it becomes in your world. No one's going to know any different. So, if you as long as you can just say you get on a boat and you go over here. So, I mean, it's your world as a DM or as a player. You're part of that world, so I can sort of see almost any campaign setting fitting into anything else, because if it really isn't, say you're in a desert world and it's just full of jungles in the campaign books, don't have to mention the jungle. Yeah. You can get around that fairly easily, so I think as long as the basic storyline is there, most storylines will fit into most places, so.
Yeah, I mean that's the nice thing about modular content as well, is you can use, you can put the tomb into absolutely anywhere, pretty much. And that's what Tales from New and Portal very much encouraged was, you want to play in Greyhawk? Go play in Greyhawk, buddy. You want to play in Forgotten Realms? Put it in the fucking Realms, you know? Don't do that, you can break things. Break the forest? No, not my precious jungles, no! Yeah, I mean, Perkins is very, much, you take the story that we've written and do with it what you want for your game. And I think that's very much the kind of feeling of 5th edition in general. It's just do what the fuck you want of it, man. And
it's like, at the end of the day, no one else is going to know.
No one cares.
They actually can't stop you. It's like the Wizards of the Coast aren't going to turn up and go, you're not playing the game the right way, how dare you? They're not going to do that. They don't care.
Like Chris answered this. I asked him a question. I saw someone else ask it too, and he may have said it on Thursday as well. But his whole thing was, like, even though he writes the campaigns and he knows the stories in and out, whenever he runs it for a group, he always specializes it towards each group so they all have a unique experience. So each module, even the writers take it and rip it apart and use what they want from it. So even this new module, if you wanted to take it and put it into another setting or only use the jungle portion or use this city, you can do so and, you know, tailor it to your own campaign and what you want to do.
Yeah. And it's funny, isn't it? It must be writing books knowing that 95% of people don't care about some of the things that they're saying.
It's the nature of role playing, isn't it? I think I've run a particular one-shot D&D game called The Lamp, and I've run it 4 times, and I have never described. I mean, I've got it all written down. I know what everything looks like. It's all down there. I know what the character names are. I've never described the tomb the same way. I've never described the temple the same way. The NPCs have different voices, wildly from different places and whatnot. The barkeeper, the bar mistress is always different depending on who I've played the day before. I mean, it's kind of,
Was this the one you ran for us?
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
Man, that was a fun one. That was good.
I've never played that. I've played 4 different versions of that particular game. I've never played it the same way. I've DM'd them all, and the players themselves bring so much to the game. I mean, you guys brought ridiculous stuff to the game, and I've never played a game I've laughed so hard at in my entire life. But
it was batshit.
it was insane. But yeah, I mean, the players bring so much to the different campaigns and the different worlds, and even one shots that I know like the back of the hand will change from time to time. So it doesn't surprise me at all that the people who wrote them know that people are just going to cherry pick the things that they find interesting for their group. And it's a great mindset to get into, especially if you are looking at writing your own campaigns for other people to go out and play. It's like, bear that in mind. Is it may be your baby, you may love it, but people are going to rip it apart and take what they want from it. So don't worry about it.
Scott, it seems like a themed kind of sandbox world. I don't think it's going to be as prescriptive in storyline, I'd imagine, as Storm King's Thunder was, or something like Out of the Abyss. I'd imagine it sounds a bit more like Curse of Strahd, a lot of locations, a lot of ideas for quests, and you kind of form which ones you want as a DM, which I liked and disliked about Curse of Strahd. So there's a couple of other bits about it as well. I mean, in other news regarding the Stream of Annihilation, D&D Beyond Phase 2 is finally going around. Which I'm super excited about, and is going to have Twitch integration. Hype. Super duper excited about that. I've been asking Twitch for that for about 2 years now. In every feedback conversation I have with Twitch staff, I tell them, integrate something with Roll20 or some other program, please, so that we can have it. That would be great, thanks. So finally, it sounds like something like that is happening. I imagine every other Twitch D&D streamer has been screaming for the same thing for a while now, so really, really happy about that. And obviously there'll be digital copies of the rules and the game on D&D Beyond as well. There's still a question mark over D&D Beyond in general for me, but the Twitch integration is a big thumbs up, plus 12 for me. Very excited about that. So yeah, man. But let's see. What other news is there? Oh, pronunciation guide by Mercer. Yeah, can't wait for that. And Neverwinter updates for those of you who play video games of Neverwinter with Perkins voicing.
Yeah, as usual, they're going to be pulling the new environment into Neverwinter. As if you don't play the game, Neverwinter is an action MMO, right? MMO action RPG?
Yeah, right. MMO RPG type thing.
There you go. That every single time they have a new module release, they also release the game the setting in the game itself. So that way everyone's kind of making the same progress. Everyone's taking their own takes on the stories, which is really cool. So based on whatever medium you explore D&D with, you can still experience the same or similar story and integration that everybody else is having. Which is nice.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Okay, anything else we wanted to touch on the Tomb of Annihilation before we move on to the next book? That's pretty much it. A couple other bits coming out, board games, dice, stuff like that. The usual kind of little things that you can buy, but, aren't particularly...
Buy more dice,
heavy.
so you need to know.
If you want some ideas of how the games run or what the theme of it is, all their games that they played on the Stream of Annihilation in the last 48 hours are going to be on the Wizards of the Coast D&D YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So feel free to hit up those games. They have some great pairings of people pulling in from the Yogs cast, from the High Rollers, from Critical Role, Misclicks, Zeitgeber Action.
I think.
Acquisitions
Glory,
C-Team.
Maze Arcana, Misclicks,
loads. They kind of, from what I've seen, they kind of meshed a load of people together from different places, didn't they? Yeah. I think that's great. That's a great way to see things.
Yeah.
So feel free to hop over there, catch some of the games, and enjoy. They were a blast to see. And Perkins runs one of those meat grinder modes, so you get to see how bad that can get.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's move on to talk, which I am much more excited about than the Tomb of Annihilation. This is Xanathar's Guide to Everything, which is pretty exciting, I guess. It's November release, November 21st, 2017, and done, I imagine, similarly in the style of Volo's Guide to Monsters, as the name would suggest, probably written by this guy, Xanathar, who apparently has a love for his pet goldfish. It's a new Unearthed Arcana and new player content book, basically. So every class gets 2 new subclasses, except for the wizard. It gets 1 new subclass, and there's also rules for traps, downtime, and other bits that we've seen in Unearthed Arcana, which I imagine we'll see a refined and reprinted version within this book. Also, I imagine that one of them will definitely be the Revised Ranger. I'm hoping the Revised Ranger makes it into Xanathar's Guide. Fingers crossed for now. But Philonda, first impressions of an Unearthed Arcana new player content book?
Player content can be, for me, a bit hit and miss. But I don't know, there's some of the stuff I've seen coming out from Unearthed Arcana recently seems to be fairly balanced, she says, with a pinch of salt. There are exceptions because they kind of go along the whole template thing.
Balanced TM,
Yeah, kind of. I think, to be fair, even I think some of the classes in the player's handbook still need a bit of tweaking to make them fair. On the whole, they're generally pretty good. I'm interested to see it, to be honest.
I think rogues need a buff.
Yeah, rogues need a buff. Bards need to become bigger skill monkeys, and I don't think Valor bards are particularly powerful enough, so I think they need to be better. Just a personal side route. I'm interested to see it. I'm interested to read it. I mean, any time that you can even have a look at and have an idea for things, and you think mechanically this sucks, there's still an idea in there. You can just take it and drag it and play as you wish. I'm kind of excited to see this because I think the only other kind of D&D book I've got other than the Player's Handbook is Volo's Guide to Monsters. So I'm interested to see if this is a similar type thing, actually. It'll be kind of interesting to read.
Yeah.
Also, the art looks freaking rad.
Oh, yeah, it always looks really nice and sleek. I mean, that's something you can always say about the Wizards books. They're going to be quality in terms of the artwork and how they're put together, usually really, really nice. Josh, first impressions?
It kind of reminds me of, I believe it was 3.5 or 4th, I can't remember exactly, but when they had the Player's Handbook 2 of here's just Wanda, you're welcome for that book, by the way. So it reminds me of the secondary Player's Handbook where they introduced those new characters, new subclasses, the Paragon paths they did in the past and such, of you've played the game for this many years with these characters, feel free to try something else. And by publishing the book, it really makes the Unearthed Arcana feel a little bit more legit instead of just hey, here's some Playhouse material. And Jeremy Crawford, I believe it was him who tweeted about it. He said, these are from the Unearthed Arcana, the ones that worked, and the finished versions of them. So they may be even more tweaked than the Unearthed Arcana because of playtesting and just feedback and such. So I'm excited to see what they actually honed in, what they made a little bit better, and it gives a little bit more ease of access to people at the table to have something a little bit more finalized. And seeing these pop up in like the adventuring, I forgot what they're actually called, the groups that play
Adventurers League. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it'll make more options for them as well, which is nice.
Yeah, that's really good because when we have played D&D in our home group, it's always been like, I want to play this, and then the DM has to sit down and go through and work out whether it's balanced, whether it fits into the world, whether everything's a-okay or not. And I am forever just like, headache, screw it, player's handbook. This just means that if you don't want to have to sit for 3 goddamn hours to work out whether this person gets a spell at this level and whether it's going to break the game or not, this stuff it's been honed down and like gone, this is better, this is better, this is better, this is better. That's perfect. I think that's going to work really well. I'd say more options for players, I'm definitely up for. I just don't want to spend 3 hours checking that a spell at level 1 isn't going to kill everyone.
Yeah. I mean, I think Raz mentioned the Artificer and Mystic class. I believe we haven't had any classes confirmed, and I would suggest that we might not see those in Xanathar's Guide because they've just been released on the DM's Guild, and I think that's probably where they'll stay. Because I don't think they'd release it in the DM's Guild and then release it again in Xanathar's Guide. So I'd imagine that we don't see those, but I guess it's possible. There might be, I imagine there is new stuff that they haven't yet told us about on the release day. So yeah, new subclasses definitely, and maybe that means that we don't see the Revised Ranger, or maybe they just haven't confirmed that there will be new classes and actually will be, and that they will include the Revised Ranger as well. Yeah, I definitely like the idea of, I've loved Unearthed Arcana ever since it came out, really, and I've tried to keep on top of it, most of the stuff that comes out. And it's been really interesting just for the game to stay fresh and just to look at new stuff. But I agree, some of the stuff has come out as being like, it needs tweaking and changing, and that's what the whole process is about. So I really like that it's been given a home, an actual, like, it's been certified almost by Wizards, saying like, this isn't just a crazy little experiment that we don't really give a shit about. This is actually going to be printed, and this is going to be where we end with it. Yeah, I highly doubt, Bomber, from what Perkins was saying on Thursday, that they're going to be pushing to release player content books after this. I mean, it's been several years until we saw this, and I imagine if any new player stuff comes out, which within the lifespan of 5th edition, I'm sure it will, it'll probably be several years until we see something like Xanathar's Guide as well. But who knows, they seem to be pretty on top of releasing campaign content which doesn't bloat the game and make it really unbalanced or unplayable because you have to play one class to be better than every other. So that's the hope with Xanathar's Guide, is that it's balanced, and that they've really refined the Unearthed Arcana stuff down. They do a lot of playtesting with Unearthed Arcana, but if you think about how much playtesting they did for 5th edition, there's quite a difference there. There was years, it seems like, of just testing and testing and testing with 5th.
Well, so to be fair, they probably also spent years and years testing the basic 5th ed classes in like their new mechanics and all that, right? So getting new stuff into that, definitely have to do that quality testing, because if they put out some of the stuff, they went, hey, this came straight from Unearthed Arcana, exactly the way you see it on the first day they really say, like, the pre-subclasses, they're just like, nah, not a chance. But the fact that they've actually spent a lot of time doing this definitely is like, yeah, so they're taking the fact that people have gone and created these things and gone, yeah, this is definite. We have our, seal of approval on this. This was worth investigating, and we've narrowed down the best of the best, and it's just cherry picked. And I'd say I'm hoping that it's going to be balanced, because more options is always good. That's what role playing is all about. And so yeah, just hope it's not broken.
Yeah. I like the idea as well of not adding in a ton of classes. I like the idea of just adding some subclasses in, really, because I think. Yeah, I think you're right. It seems as though Fifth kind of covers pretty well basically every sort of archetype that you could think of, in terms of at the base, at its core, at its class. And then the subclass is kind of, well, okay, now I want to be a samurai or a fighter, a knight or whatever. And maybe those subclasses make it into Xanathar's Guide. And it doesn't mean that you have to create a whole new class with whole new rules and mechanics for it, because then it's just... it gets too much, quite quickly. I mean, even adding in one or two classes adds quite a large percentage of classes to the game, and so they have to be quite careful about that, I think.
Yeah, I think a lot of these things can be solved with skinning. Like, you want to make a samurai, it's like, cool, go and check down like monk and just say he can use a weapon and skin it. A lot of things can be solved with skinning, but yeah, adding in subclasses, variations, what you currently have, like mixing like templates from grab this bit from here from that one and grab it from there. If you mash them together and change the names and make that kind of works really well.
Yeah.
At least that's what we found anyway on our side.
Yeah, I'm very much the same, and it seems a lot of the time that people will want to like homebrew a specific class or a specific archetype or specific rules for their idea, but usually you can just say, if you hand wave it, we don't actually need mechanics for something like this. We can just say that, you're this kind of person. You want to be a cat man. Before Tabaxi, you could just have been a cat man in my game, and it wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have mattered. Yeah, give me some high dex score, sure. So yeah, I'm excited with Xanathar's Guide. Definitely very excited. I mean, it's something that I've been asking about for more on that kind of material to be printed, and to hopefully see some just new stuff for players as well. Because ultimately, players will get to see the content in the campaigns sometimes if they play in it. If their DM goes out and buys a book and plays in it. But something like Xanathar's Guide and something like Volo's Guide is a book that everyone can own. I think it's just nice that you can get to buy a book and have a read through it at the very least. It's nice for a player to be able to have that, and it's nice for my players in my games to be able to say, I want to do something a little different. I want to try something new and stay interested in the game. I definitely think that they need content for players. It's just the nature of that content and exactly how much of it that they release. Oh, my fridge situation is all cleared up. Thank you, Richard.
I do have a question for you guys. So multi-classing is relatively simple. They designed it out. But have you guys ever run into wanting to multi-archetype? Like, as an example, if you're an abjuration wizard and then in the middle of progressing, you wanted to switch your archetype over. Have you guys had to deal with that? Do you have any ideas of how to go about that?
I personally have never ran into that. Usually because it's not allowed in like the player's handbook, right? So usually it doesn't come into the fact where someone comes to me and says, "Can I do this as well?" I honestly haven't looked into it enough to see how kind of crazy that could be, but I imagine it would probably get crazy.
I think it could be really headache-inducing, but do you mean like changing completely from one archetype to another, or mixing the two?
I would think as an example, if to go back to the wizard example, if you started off as an abjuration wizard, and at some point in your campaign you started to see a lot of divination, and then your character decided, hey, I don't want to concentrate on abjuration anymore, I want to switch to divination. So it's kind of like multi-classing, but changing where your path would go. Okay. I would think of, would you start taking the other archetype features from the beginning again? Would you just completely nullify what you were able to do and switch over?
I think it kind of, for me, it would depend on the game you're running. If they literally went from one archetype to another, and there was a big difference, let's say fighters, because I think fighters can do magic and then they don't have magic.
Yes.
So if they went from one to another, I'd probably, because that's such a big difference, this is probably, I think, the quickest one thing in my head, is I would make that a role-playing quest. So they would go, right, you've gone down the path of beating people in the face, and now you want to have magic and you're at this level. Okay, let's go through a scenario where you literally have to go from one place, learn magic, and that's the magic you now have, and that's what you run with. I'd probably definitely make it an RP related thing to get them to be able to change from one to the other, because that to me would make more sense, I guess, rather than just you've forgotten all your old training but you're specializing in magic, so go along, learn that, and that's how you get them to change meta wise in a role-playing way. That's probably how I'd handle it.
I think if a player really
suggest.
really wanted to do it and it seemed like it wouldn't blow anything up in the game, then probably role-playing is the best way to get there. Usually I do the same with multi-classing anyway, so if you want to be a paladin where you got to go swear an oath, or if you want to be a necromancer, you got to go start digging some bodies up. So I think I imagine so, but I don't imagine the scenario where if I'm an abjuration wizard and then I also want to be a wizard necromancer and take two of those same paths. I imagine it's in the game that you can't do it because it would get crazy. And usually if something can't be done, it's probably, I guess, because something would get messy somewhere, or it's just too much of a headache to bother. But I guess in the right scenario.
I'm trying to think of another situation where you could probably... I think clerics might be another good example I could think of, where you could do that crossing over, where you take one bit from one area and one bit from the other. Like if you wanted to be like a life war domain cleric, because they don't have that. I think they do. I think it's called protection in the new UA stuff that's coming out, which Hadley may be in Guide to Everything. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, you could because the way that they structure them out is like you have this at this level, this at level, this at this level. Is like I think so long as you work with your GM and with your player, and they work together and think, okay, well at this level I'm taking this, at this level I'm taking this, at this level I'm taking this. As long as you're not picking it personally, you're not picking it for meta reasons, because hey, this is a shield and this is burden, hey, this is healing, that. It's like, no, give me a role-playing reasons to why you're taking that from that one, and then that from that one, and that from that one, and I will let them roll with it. That'll be fine. That's, I think, because I've looked at clerics recently, that's why that one's particularly stuck in my head. But yeah, because they level them out across the levels and stuff, and I think that kind of mix might work. How it'd work out in game, I don't know. I've never tested it. Now I want to.
Yeah. My personal idea of how I may approach it would be, normally at certain levels you get the feature of your archetype, and then if you wanted to switch over, you would just start from the beginning portion of one of the other archetypes and get that instead. So like you get 2 from abjuration, and then when you get your third feature, you would pop back to the first benefit of like divination and work your way up. That way you're not getting the higher level stuff at one and lower level stuff in the other. You would just start over again, kind of like a multi-class.
That kind of makes sense, because then if you were doing something like you ran your campaign beyond level 20, I guess because it would be basically like saying you have a level 20 sorcerer, a level 20 warlock. If you hit level 40, so it would basically be the same. You're just taking wizard again. Is that what you're saying?
Kind of. Yeah. It's
So you could.
Okay. Cool.
Interesting.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I like the idea of more backgrounds in Xanathar's Guide as well. People saying they'd like some more backgrounds. I think that'd be really easy to do as well as interesting for players. Because also I think you can make any background really, really easily and just think some up. It's just useful to have some ideas thrown at you on a piece of paper sometimes.
Because I think they've got the template at the very beginning of backgrounds, haven't they? Yeah. So as long as you follow that, you're probably alright.
You can make your own pretty easily, but I think it's nice to have some extra ideas and some official ones, because sometimes I've looked at the D&D wiki and it is a hive of villainy. Sometimes it's nice to have something from Wizards which is like this is real, okay? It's not terrible, all right?
Fifth is good at that, of like, here's an example, do what you want with it, or take our examples, it doesn't matter, but it is yours to do whatever you want with.
Yeah, and the other thing is as well is spells, and this is something that I've heard a lot on Twitter when I talked about Xanathar's Guide with folks. They really, really want new spells, and hopefully the new spells, some of the basic spells that we saw in Unearthed Arcana, end up getting into this book as well. I think new spells would be quite nice for players, and it seems to be something I hear quite regularly as on people's wish list for 5th. I like the idea of a couple of new spells going around. Weapons, it might just be a math hell. You might be right, and I tend to think you can skin weapons really easily as well. For instance, I have I've got like a pirate cutlass in the game, but I think statistically it's a rapier or a longsword or something like that, or a short sword. I don't remember.
I've run with a broom with a bunch of cogs taped on the end and called it a
certainly
great axe.
have.
So. The stats were a great axe. It's just, you can call it what you want as long as you pick something similar. Yeah, weapons can just be reskinned they're probably the easiest thing to reskin in the entire system, I think.
Yeah. You're probably right, actually. New magic items in Xanathar's Guide to Everything. I could see it.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Especially, Xanathar himself. I'm pretty sure, the lore of that character, that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, he's got a lot of interesting things lying around there on that cover, actually, now that I'm going to pull this up full screen for me.
So Xanathar is a dude with actual lore behind him?
He's a beholder,
Yeah.
Oh, wicked.
Yeah, cool, right? Got a bunch of books there. He's got a chalice of his goldfish in. He's got a couple of, worms.
Sorry, I'm leaning in because I can't see the picture very well.
This should be... There's hopefully spoilers of the new magic items, but I
Hey,
doubt
look,
it.
there's your box, Will.
Oh my
It's your
god.
box of memories.
My memory box. I stole it.
They stole your memory box.
I tell you who it is. It's Greg Tito. He listens to the podcast and he's stolen my magic items.
How dare he? As long as your prop's in there, it should be fine, right, Will?
Every time, Tito. Every time.
Magic items, always good. You can never have enough magic items, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, someone mentioned that they hope the special edition would have googly eyes, and the black version, I'd really love that.
That would be amazing.
So I think it would be like, I don't know, too memey for wizards maybe. But
No, that would be amazing.
I'd
buy that. I'd pay the extra $5 for that.
I kind of want to buy the special edition and add some googly eyes on, and just improve it
if
for
it's
them.
not already.
Yeah.
Yeah. Send it back to them. It's like, this is what you should have done.
I like how you defaulted to it'll improve it.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
Of course it will.
My artistic efforts will, of course, improve it. Apparently he's a crime lord in Waterdeep. Okay, cool.
That is correct. Yes. Xanathar is a title. I forgot exactly which guild. It's like Skull something. And I believe the person on the cover, the beholder on the cover, is the Eye, which is the beholder that took over that title.
Ah, cool.
He's a clever bastard. But yeah, he is based in Waterdeep.
If the goldfish dies, the gang lord gets ballistic. I like it.
He has that rage mechanic on him where if you kill his companion, he gets rage.
He's off.
Skullport. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan Dwarf. Awesome. Yeah. No, I'm excited. I guess one other thing is that every class gets 2 subclasses except for wizard, who gets 1. Interesting, I guess. I feel like wizards have a lot of options already, so maybe that's perhaps why. Or maybe wizards are just difficult to balance correctly.
Yeah, because I think in theory, they can take any spell as long as they've read it or they have it written down in a book or something, which is just insanely overpowered in my opinion.
Yeah, you just need the money and the time to do so, because every spell that you copy in your spell book, it costs a certain amount of gold and time to do.
Yeah.
So all the archetypes now are based on the classes. The one I'm hoping that they'll put in is the lore master.
Yeah,
from the
for sure.
Arcana, because that was fun. You're able to dip in and out of the different schools and change things in a very fun way. That's the one I'm really hoping for, because I play wizards all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, wizards already have so much versatility. It feels like that there's almost not too much design space to go with a wizard. But yeah, Lore Master would be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's because they're like the big pick and choose class, really, aren't they?
Yeah.
So you can they're probably like the most versatile. Like, I want to make this character have this particular set of things, and pick everything from everywhere, because you can't choose to just, like, if you're a cleric and you want to be a healer, it's like you get a bunch of healing spells and a couple of other things, whereas wizards like, I want to pick this and this. So, they've gone off menu. There's no set menu for these guys. They've gone a la carte. They don't give a fuck. So yeah, I think balancing those guys would be really tricky.
Yeah.
And Rich is saying they're probably one of the most powerful magic wise.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're probably right, honestly. Yeah, I mean, it's not only that they're incredibly powerful, it's that they are so versatile. So it's like, not only are they really good, but they can be really good at pretty much every magic thing. Whereas with other spellcaster classes, you're a little bit more limited as to the things that you can be good at. Which is fair, I think. But yeah.
It fits with themes, doesn't it? That's the whole point of it.
Yeah. But it is interesting that I got 1. I'm interested to see which one it is. And if there's any tweaks to it as well. I mean, I'm imagining that most of the unearthed arcana material we've seen will get revised and then updated to its very final form in Xanathar's guide. So any tweaks and changes will be definitely interesting to take a look at from where they were initially and to where they end up with for the final content. I've not been able to try.
That would be interesting to look at.
Yeah.
Is seeing the original version and seeing the finish and what they actually changed and trying to figure out why. That would be an interesting look.
Yeah, I agree. Nathaniel asks, I haven't been able to try 5e. Is it any good? I'd say so. I'd say very good.
It took me a while to get used to it, especially spells, mainly because I generally don't. I have a big problem with magic and stuff, but it took me a long time to get used to 5e, but it's definitely better than the old system. It's probably one of the better role-playing systems out there for sure. It's pretty well balanced.
And it's relatively easy for new players to hop into.
Yeah.
It's not very modifier heavy. Like, it has modifiers, but it's not like 3.5 Pathfinder where it's just a bunch of math. Like, the advantage disadvantage mechanic makes it gorgeous and just really easy to run. It's definitely one of the easier to pick up versions, which is why I think it is becoming more of a resurgence of D&D lately. It's a lot more versatile for newer players.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's essentially dice roll plus skill plus proficiency if you're proficient, and then you have advantage if you want to make someone like, this is much better. I think it's definitely new player friendly. When I've done conventions and stuff and I've looked at how some of the other systems work, like Conan, Pathfinder, everyone seems to get on with D&D a lot easier if they're new players than, they say, for example, Pathfinder or Age of Conan or some of the other bigger RPG ones out there, which I'm struggling to think of right now, but I'm sure there are plenty of them. But it's definitely easier for new players to pick up.
Yeah.
And for those of us coming back to D&D and going from 3.5 or 4 over to something 5, it's different, but it's simpler. It's nice. It does take getting some used to, especially spells. But once you're over that initial hurdle of spells, it's all right. It's pretty good.
Have you played 3rd edition? It will seem quite easy to pick up, I think. But yes, a previous question from Fane was, are there rumours of new adventures, and are we psyched for them? I try not to get, and no, there aren't any rumours of, like, what's happening after, like, Tomb Annihilation, for instance. They're pretty, good at keeping their lips sealed on what's happening later down the line. But, am I psyched for Tomb Annihilation? I'm interested. I'm interested. And will I be buying it? Yes, I will. Will I be buying it about 5 times? Yeah, probably.
On every platform.
Just like every book that comes out from Wizards. Pretty sure, 95% of their UK sales come from me.
Yep.
So, I'll be buying it. I guess more excited for Xanathar's Guide than Tomb of Annihilation, personally. What about you, Josh?
I would say so, too. More so of campaigns do take a while to get through. Like Curse of Strahd, I'm still going through it now. And then we have another one planned afterwards that is not this. So the time that'll actually take to get to Tomb of Annihilation is probably substantial. So I'm more excited for the more immediate benefit, which is Xanathar's Guide. You can use that no matter what campaign setting you're doing because it provides you options, especially for your players. So more options, I think, is better for that. I am excited to see where this campaign goes and the different stories that come out of it. But definitely player options is where my head is at.
Yeah. And Philonda, probably the same, I'm guessing.
I won't be buying Tomb of Annihilation the same way
I don't want to be annihilated.
I don't want to die.
I want to live.
I don't know. I generally don't buy. I've bought DM's Guide. I haven't got. The only reason I have 2 D&D books is actually because of Josh.
You don't have a DMG?
But no.
Who are you, mate?
Guide. I play it hardcore, man. Most everything you need is in the bloody. Everything you need is in the player's handbook. Or if you are really fancy, you have the DM's. You have the DM screen thing, which has a bunch of the random rules in there. But pretty much everything is in there.
You can't say you won't play meat grinder mode and then say you play it hardcore. If anything.
No. It's in like screw the rules. I'm off. I don't know. I mean, I might. To be honest, I probably would look at getting Xanathar's Guide to Everything, okay? Because it gives you ideas and things you can put into your campaign, whereas, I say, we generally don't play campaign books because we tend to write our own stories. It's nothing against the campaign books, we just don't tend to roll that way.
I do recommend the DMG for the magic items section. They have amazing ideas for things, even if you tweak them. Or just to pull a magic item out of something, or magic item tables and such. It's a very good resource for that. There's some other ideas in there too, but if you're used to homebrewing your own campaigns, that stuff may not be helpful for you.
Yeah, we just for us, we pretty much find everything is in the player's handbook, and we tend to have people who are very happy to argue points in because we're kind of like a very physics heavy group. If you can sway the DM with your line of reasoning, it tends to happen, or doesn't happen if the DM feels like, screw you, you're going to die. So we haven't found this particularly useful for us. So, but probably definitely Xanathar's Guide, because it's got lots of little things to say. You can drop it into any campaign for us.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, the ease and versatility of the book is probably a little bit higher than Tomb of Annihilation, and that's just the nature of the content. I think the same way Volo's Guide was very easy to put into everything, whereas Storm King's Thunder only really fits into a campaign, right? There's a couple of other bits in there, I guess. Sonanos says, would love to see another Volo's Guide come out with more monsters and info. I already found out it gave a lot of great info. Yeah, I wouldn't be mad. I don't think I'd want it anytime particularly soon. But I think it was useful. But yeah, I wonder if they probably feel like they might have done that now. And I don't know. I can't see into the mind of the 5e production team. But I'd imagine having done Volo's Guide and it being such a success, if they made another one, it probably wouldn't be such a success. So they probably look at that from that marketing perspective as well. Trying to do new stuff, as well as what would be good for players, and what the majority of people would enjoy, and let's face it, buy. So obviously I buy every book that comes out from Wizards, but if I was just a dude who played D&D, I wouldn't buy Volo's Guide 2 probably, whereas I would buy Xanathar's Guide because it's slightly different. But who knows? In a couple of years' time, anything is possible, right? Because 5e isn't going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean to be fair, think how long it took them to craft Volo's Guide, and it's definitely a lot of time spent into it, a lot of energy, a lot of playtesting, and it's gorgeous, great, and hilariously written, and it's wonderful. Even don't get it. If you just want to read something, read Volo's Guide. It is genuinely hilarious. I found it great, and I think Xanathar's Guide is going to pretty much be along the same idea. It's obviously taken a long time to go through and playtest and stuff, and they would have to put at least that much care and attention into the next book. If they were to do another Volo's Guide or to do another Xanathar's Guide, everything else, all the other things on the other planes, like they've had to put at least that much care and attention, and taken how long they spent on it so far to do another guide like that, they'd have to probably spend at least that long again. So it definitely won't be in the future, I wouldn't have thought.
It's like, where do you go after you've done the book on literally everything?
Everything else.
All the other, it's going to be Drizzt Guide on all the other stuff. All the other bits and bobs.
Drizzt Guide to Life would be great.
Oh man. I can see it now. I can see the cover, and it's I'd buy it. I'd buy it straight away. I want to know how he lives. It would be like tips on how to do your eyeliner, your guy liner.
The best chat up lines.
Oh dear, yes. How to put in your purple contact lenses, yeah.
Cat sitting with Drizzt.
How to go shopping with Drizzt.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the other side of being excited about the new content from Xanathar's Guide is that potentially we've seen quite a lot of it already in Unearthed Arcana. So perhaps maybe there's a little bit less of an excitement factor for Xanathar's Guide because it feels like you've we've seen it already in a way, and maybe a lot of this content was already free on Unearthed Arcana, and obviously it's been revised and changed and updated to a truly playable format, which is something I'm more than willing to pay for. But perhaps it's a little bit less exciting to see something in print that I've already seen in print.
Yes.
What is there a factor in that for you? Do you think, Josh?
It's more of the I know I'm going to be getting more out of it, and as I was saying before, it would be nice to see the actual finished products, because I enjoy the Unearthed Arcana because it's such a frequent thing of like, hey guys, test this out, let us know, test this out, let us know, which means they care about their fans and who plays their game and are willing to listen. So I want to see how they're taking our advice and our feedback and applying that to their actual products, when we don't see that really with their campaigns and such, because it's their stories. So it's going to be nice to see the result of the community's work, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think, I imagine that would be in such a different version from what we've seen it, that it would be, this actually does feel quite new. That would be the hope, I guess. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these things are, the fear would be that it exists, but the most likely and hopeful aspect of it would be actually it probably feels quite fresh and new anyway. And,
yes.
And having it all in one place in one book, as we mentioned before, is much more sort of powerful than having it this is something that a guy brings to you, and he prints off a piece of paper with it on, and you're like, this could be really broken. Whereas he gets out the book and he's like, this is actually what Wizard said is okay to play in Adventurers League and everything else. It's like, yeah, all right, I guess I can. And you don't feel like being a dick for telling him no. But yeah, I guess for Evelyn, if you've never seen any of the Unearthed Arcana stuff, or even like taken an in-depth look at some of this stuff, it's like completely fresh,
Yeah. For someone who, I don't run a lot of D&D stuff because we play in a slightly different system. For me, like Unearthed Arcana is great to get ideas and stuff from, and occasionally people are like, "Hey, check this out," and I do, and some of it I think, yeah, that's horrendously broken, and something, yeah, that's functional. That'll do. That's pretty cool. I'll run with that. So for me, yeah, it's everything in one place. It's been pre-checked, pre-worked through, and I don't, as a GM, have to spend like say 3 hours checking out whether a stat thing will break a game or not. So for me, this is great. I mean, I have to worry about faffing around. I get to be a slightly lazier GM, and we have to prepare a lot as a GM. We have a lot to do on our shoulders. We have to do story voices and all that good crap. Like, yeah. I don't mind checking some of this stuff out. It's very cool, very interesting. But yeah, to have it all just exactly in one thing, I can just put it off a shelf and go bam. Which means if I don't have the internet, I can still play a game. So
there you go. Or when D&D Beyond has offline support as well. Aha. Everything will be sorted. Mike from Sly Flourish says, I'm hoping for some guidelines for Theatre of the Mind combat, but I'm not hopeful. I'm also not sure if it's just me or if it'll be something lots of people want, and he does expect to see better guidelines for encounter building. Yeah, I mean, those are a couple of things that came up in Unearthed Arcana recently. The other one that I think Fane mentioned previously was mass combat rules, whether or not we'll see that printed or not. The other thing is downtime activities, which I think has been confirmed, and traps, which I think is also confirmed as well. So, when it is a guide to everything, hopefully we do see some more guidelines on that. But yeah, I feel like Theatre of the Mind I would love as well, but I don't think that they would print it for some reason. I just have that feeling that maybe they wouldn't print it. Yeah.
That I feel like would be a challenge for writing, is telling people how to imagine things, when it's a lot easier to have it as, hey, it's this grid and you move this many spaces. So maybe just a tips and tricks for Theater of the Mind stuff to make things flow better, or think how to explain things. But yeah, that would be a difficult task, I think.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, we cover Theatre of the Mind a lot. Obviously, the three of us being in podcasting, me doing my entire group without maps and minis, because frankly I was too poor to buy maps and minis, so I never did. So I was like, well, screw that, I've got no money for this, but we can talk. I think a lot of things are moving, say, like podcasting is becoming a really big thing. Doing stuff across Twitch is a really big thing, and not everyone wants to use maps, and hardly, some people do it regularly, and some people just like, well, occasionally do this, not. I think they'd be missing a trick if they didn't at least try and put something in there about how to do Theatre of the Mind, or how to at least have an idea and how to explain it and go through it. And I mean, for us, we, instead of like distances like 60 foot, we do standard meta unit, which is the length of the room that we're in. So you think, could I reasonably run that in 6 seconds? Yes. Could I run 3 of that length in 6 seconds? Yes. It's 3 meta standard units. So we tend to do that a lot. And I think I think they would be severely missing a trick if they didn't put stuff about Theatre of the Mind, because a lot of people are moving towards that because people like to imagine their own thing. And well, I think I might have said this before, probably last time we did this. I imagine that when I'm at a table and there are 5 players, there's 6 different universes going on. There are 6 different ways of seeing it. And, Theatre of the Mind is becoming massive and huge, and people really enjoy that from at least what I found. And yeah, they should definitely put something in, at least guidelines or say tips and tricks, as you were saying, just to help people out.
Yeah, I agree. And I think as well, I mean, a couple of other things that I'm thinking might be included is we saw feats for... Oh god, was it feats for skills and feats for races or classes? I have to remind myself. And that's something else that could end up winding its way in as optional rules. And people are mentioning, will we see more optional rules like the meat grinder stuff in, it's feats for races and skills. Will we see more optional rules? Hopefully, just more different ideas of ways to play and maybe guidelines for that. That would be interesting to see. I like having maps and minis, but there's a lot to be said about Theatre of the Mind. Yeah, I agree. But yeah, I think Josh is right, potentially, that maybe they wouldn't include that because it might be difficult to put into words in written format, perhaps as difficult, but yeah, hopefully more, just include a bunch of stuff and then throw it at us and see what you want to use, and that would be the best case scenario for me, rather than too little stuff that is perfected or overdone. Just a bunch of stuff that they think is, you could do that works if you want it, because it is everything. So I expect literally every piece of content ever that Wizards have ever thought about within this book.
That's true. Theater of the Mind has to be in it then, because it's literally everything.
It's literally everything. I also expect advanced cattle warfare rules to be included, amongst other things.
Princess class 100% has to be in there.
If not, I'm sending it back.
Yeah, I rage quit D&D.
Yeah, I mean, mass combat would be good to see as well in there. Just basically everything that people really liked. I mean, I think a lot of those things are potentially things that I just liked, and maybe a lot of people ended up not liking, and they have all of the feedback forms, so they have 100% knowledge of all of that, and all that we have really is just what we liked and what we think other people might like. But it's difficult to really have a really fine barometer on exactly what other people are enjoying in Unearthed Arcana as well, because usually it's just a lot of people arguing about some rule or another, or some idea or another. So it's difficult. It's difficult, but certainly excited, and I will be interested to see exactly where they take Tomb of Annihilation. And I'm excited as well in terms of how much the hype is real about some of the things that they've been talking about, the new environments, the jungles and stuff like that. Is that going to be a real big part of it, or is it mostly going to be about the Tomb of Annihilation? Because I feel like Wizards are pretty honest when it comes to some of these things, but I feel like it can be quite easy for hype to get carried away with such things, and maybe that's.
That's definitely part of their marketing too. Is you have to hype your new product. That's just doesn't matter if it's even bad or good. You need to hype it no matter what to make people excited for it. What I'm hoping for is maybe like the Tomb of Annihilation is. Like, if you take Skyrim as an example, you had your main quest of your whole dragon ability thing, and that was the main thing. But you had all your side quests going on. That was like a major portion too. My hope is that Tomb of Annihilation is like the main quest, but by no means do you have to do it. That is my primary hope.
Yeah. I like the idea for alternative rules, like Mike Wells' is different initiative rules as well. But I mean, that wasn't Unearthed Arcana, so I wonder if maybe that rules that out or not. Who knows? Yeah. The one thing I come up with sometimes is that I felt like Out of the Abyss was really heavily marketed towards the whole Drizzt angle. I remember watching videos and promo videos at the time that meet Drizzt, and obviously that's a name which resonates highly or strongly, I guess, with certain groups of people. And I feel like in the actual product, that wasn't really much of a part of it at all. And I ended up actually enjoying the product more because of that. But yeah, anyway, it just leads to question some of what we see now. And Perkins mentioned on Thursday, what we saw on Stream of Annihilation isn't actually necessarily the official book that they were playing. A lot of it is inspired by, so that we don't get spoilers from it. So that's another thing to bear in mind. Necessarily what we see on Stream of Annihilation doesn't mean 100% of what we'll see in the book. So worth bearing in mind. But let's open the floor a little bit to a Q&A session as well, seeing as we've been nattering away amongst ourselves about the Tomb of Annihilation and Xanathar's Guide to Everything for a little while. So if you guys have a question, feel free to ask it, my friends. It could be about these two books we're talking about today. It could be anything about Dungeons and Dragons, really, if you have a question about how to play a rule or something like that. Best way to do that is to do like Q and then at Encounter Roleplay and then ask a question, and then it will show up nice and red for me, and I can read it out and put it into my little Google Doc here. And bear in mind as well, if you don't see it answered immediately, it'll be on the list, and if I definitely have skipped you, then shout it at me again and I'll do my best. But yeah, I will get my document up here.
I have questions, hang on.
You have questions?
I have questions for... Well, I have
questions for you.
I have a question for you, Josh, but I have to open up my Twitter to find out what the question was.
Josh, why are you such an evil DM?
Yes, we'll start off with... Josh, why are you so evil to your characters?
It's
So-
the book. It's the book. It's not me.
You see, I don't know if any of you guys are listening, but Josh does he DMs for taking initiative, and you told your players they're playing the Lost Mines of Fandelver.
Uh-huh.
And where did you put them?
Oh, I may have opened up Curse of Strahd instead.
The Tomb of Horrors.
He did it by accident. Yeah.
Accident.
So that question, I guess, I throw out to both you and Will. Actually, have you ever set your characters, your players up for something, knowing full well you're going to run something else because you want to see how they make characters and perceiving something a different way, and then seeing how those characters react in a completely different situation? Have you ever done that, and why would you?
Well, as we just said, I've absolutely done that because that's how taking initiative starts. I very much read and prepped them for Lost Mine of Fandelver. And I'm like, Adventure Zone did it. We know how it kind of runs, but it'll be a nice way to introduce people into the game, blah, 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 deception check out of game. And I wanted to do that because mostly when people run modules, you have a subconscious meta thing with you that you want to be prepared for it with your characters. I wanted to avoid that completely. Because going into Strahd, Bucky has told me before, he's like, we can do a party of 4 clerics, we'll be fine, don't worry about it. So I didn't want that to happen. I wanted them to be normal adventurers, normal heroes that was not expecting Strahd's evil shenanigans that he does, and see how they how they interact with this horror environment. So it was more of a, not really a test for the players, because as soon as I started, Drew and Bucky were like, well, damn it. I know where we are now. I would have made a different character. I'm like, that's exactly the point. I didn't want you to do that. And this is now more of a test for their role playing for those characters who don't belong here. I think it's a nice, fun twist to throw at a player.
Yeah, I like that. I didn't mean to do this either, but we ended up doing this in a Call of Cthulhu game last week. So the week before, one of the characters had died at the very end of the session, at a cliffhanger. Killed, and we killed the character off because Redundant actually had to change his work schedule. So he was actually he picked up a new job, and he was going to take the job offer, and so we killed off his character. And in between that, I think the day after, he messaged me like, actually, I've got a new job, even better, and I'm going to be able to play the game. And so we figured out this cool quest, because there's a lot of weird things going on in Call of Cthulhu regarding the Dreamlands. We figured out this quest with his character about how he could regraft flesh to his skin, because that's actually one of the core spells in the module we're playing, is the ability to graft skin back onto one's flesh. And so we came up with this cool, pretty gruesome quest to do that. But my players didn't know that he was coming back. And I said, we've got a new player in today. His name is Sam, Joe, I don't know, it's Joe, something like that. And he had his webcam turned off until we brought him back into the game, and I'm like, what the fuck? And it was a lot of fun, and he very much enjoyed getting to do that reveal as well. In terms of purposefully misleading them, never intentionally out of character, in character all the time. Definitely allow players to believe information that NPCs given them, especially when they don't question it. It's always like, fine, I just told you this thing, doesn't mean it's real, but alright, man, and then they're using that information as truth, absolute truth, and then they walk right into your villain's clutches. But yeah, and I've never...
go write down some notes along these lines.
I would totally do that if, like what Josh did there for a group, if I thought they would enjoy that, and I think that probably would be quite enjoyable.
Yeah,
yes.
I think I'd only do that to people that I would.
What if they're like real metagamers?
Take it.
That's the way to punish the real metagamer.
Yeah, we actually have a guy who is our absolute standard min-max munchkin guy, and I would love to pull something like that over him, and that sounds like a great way of doing it, but I don't think I'd ever do that on a group of people that I don't think could take it. Because some people get very touchy about that.
Like, oh shit.
Yeah, new groups, don't do that for sure. Because I think when you start out, as a GM, you should definitely say, this is the kind of game I'm going to run, this is kind of thing. Because it's very open, transparent, and everyone agrees to play that kind of game. But if you're all in it just for a laugh anyway, then I think there's no problem pulling that over them. I was so impressed. I'm like, you are my heart, you're evil GM. You are deep in my heart there, man.
Thank you. the main point was, like, Bucky has been my best friend for half my life. I know how his head works, and Drew has been running games and playing in games for half his life. Nick was completely new to this. I think he's played one session beforehand. So throwing this at him was a nice curveball to get him, like, into it, and he just loved it and ate it up. I knew Bucky and Drew would appreciate the reasoning for it. But if you have players that will maybe be unhappy with it or not like the setting that you're going to do, it's important to realize that, because it can really ruin a gaming experience. But if you know your players well enough, and for me, it was also for the podcast, I wanted to do something interesting and a little bit different than people haven't done before, especially since I'm running a module, which a lot of people can know, and it's not a homebrew world, despite what I throw into it myself. It's good to keep your audience and your players on their toes.
Yeah, I don't really think that's a nice touch. Nice surprise.
I think we as content producery people definitely need to be doing things slightly out of the box that we wouldn't necessarily do with our home group. I will totally pull that switching thing over on the rest of my group, because they're a bunch, they're a bunch of dicks. So I would totally love to do that to those guys.
I think it'd be a funny way to really hammer down on, like, the worst power gamer of all time, and if you're playing with it. But yeah, I think more seriously, I mean, it'd be fun. I could definitely see that with I can imagine the excited groans of but excited.
Well, you pulled that one over me.
yeah, I could see it now, and I think that would probably be quite enjoyable. But yeah, totally, like, new players would be like, oh, I wouldn't be risky enough to do that. But yeah, I like that idea. Let's go back to some of our questions from you guys. So, are there any rules you really don't like in 5th edition that you'd want to see alternatives to? I've been asked this one a couple of times, and I struggle to think what my answer was in the past. Obviously alignment. That's like my classic trademark pet peeve that I would shoot to oblivion. We don't need to go into why, because someone will start.
Trigger.
Did you see that on my character sheet from Wednesday?
I did. Oh man, yeah. I mean, alignment typically I would get rid of, I guess. And in terms,
damn it, I forgot what the call is.
It's alignment.
There we go.
Almost 420 alignment as well. In terms of other things mechanically, I don't think anything usually annoys me with the game to the point that I really change it that often. I'll hand wave a lot of odd rules here and there when it makes sense, but I don't think regularly I think about that stuff too much. You guys?
Philanda, go ahead.
No, you go. I'm thinking.
For me, it doesn't really annoy me. It's more of a, I feel it's off the table kind of a deal. Is there magic item crafting in there? It seems unaccessible to characters just from how they did it. I understand why things take such a long time and why it's so expensive, is because magic items, in contrast, like 4th edition, can really bog down, not bog down, like really challenge the DM to make something challenging. Because magic items can really boost your characters. So the ability to make those and equip your characters with them is important to limit. But at the same time, when you put the rules in there of like, hey, this will take a year to make, like, I'm going on an adventure tomorrow. I can't do that now.
See ya. Yeah.
So that was a little limiting to me, but I personally can't think of a really solid way around it.
Right.
So I guess it's a complaint without an answer.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's fine as well. I think that's, there aren't necessarily really easy solutions to a lot of the potential problems in game design. And a lot of the solutions actually end up being more complex than necessarily than they were originally. So yeah, yes. I understand that kind of frustration with some rules where you think, man, there must be a fix for this, and then you try and think of exactly what it is. It's like, actually, the way I'm thinking about fixing this is way more complex. Magic items I get. I think in general I would like to see spells just a little bit. I mean, it would require like a whole overhaul, but generally I find it difficult for new players to grasp the spell rules quickly and easily. So if there was maybe like a an alternate version of the rules, which is like spellcasting for dummies.
Yeah,
and that would be quite
easy. I think there's, I think in the book there's an alternate way.
Yeah, I don't buy the points thing either.
Yeah. So when we've run it, I've had, I mean, when I first did D&D with a spellcaster, because I refused to do it for a very long time because me and Magic, we converted it to a mana point system, and that was because I was a sorcerer. You have sorcerer's points, you can convert, yada yada. So we converted it and then took 10% off to account for the fact that I wasn't gonna convert a level 5 down to a level 3 and lose. I just couldn't be bothered with that crap, so we just agreed that ourselves. Yeah, probably an alternate way of doing spell slots. I don't know what the answer would be. We did mana points and that wasn't particularly great because I abused the hell out of it and it wasn't good. Yeah, probably that. I think the only other thing in the general list of rules and stuff that I would probably change would be the stuff to do with components, because generally we just never ever worry about that crap. I'm never going to be carrying around a gem that's 1,000, or I'm not going to be carrying around like the hair of, I don't know, a young maiden or something. I'm never going to be doing that crap. I mean, it's interesting if you want to get down to the nitty gritty of like, I want to say exactly what's in my spell patch, and I want to say exactly what I'm eating for breakfast. Like, that's cool if you want to get that involved in it, but I'm not number crunchery accountancy type person, so I don't really care. For me, it'll probably just be components. I'll just be like, well, chuck it over the shoulder. Can't bother with it.
Yeah. Rem is also mentioning spell components. And the only other thing, and this isn't just D&D, it's games in general and life in general, counting sucks. Like ammunition, I always hand wave. That tends to be one of the things I just like. You've got some arrows on you, you know. So that tends to be something that I will just alternate for my own game.
I think it's
usually.
because like people who hit things never run out of hitting things.
Right.
It's actually why a friend of mine always plays melee characters, because he is the nitty gritty down to this kind of thing. And he's like, you know, you're never going to run out of punch. You run out of arrows, you're going to run out of spell components, you're never going to run out of punch. So he always plays melee characters for that particular reason. But yeah, ammo is the another one you classically just hand wave and get rid of. Yeah. Okay. What character that you've played or encountered has been your favorite or has had a lasting impression on you as either a player or a DM? That's a good question.
Very good question.
Right, this one over to Josh, because I've got to think.
Oh, Jesus, man. Biggest impact, Jesus. I guess for me would be my old gnome, which is actually... So in the game on Wednesday, I mentioned the fact that you may have been with a gnome called Zabito, like that whole bit.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Zabito is my old gnome character. Which he was the gnome wizard that read the tablet and turned evil and tried to kill his party.
Nice.
I think he had the biggest impact because he's kind of like a childish person who went through the world and learned from the errors that he did, and he was also very like too nice to people, which is something I tend to do. I don't like confrontation very much, so I like to just skirt things by and be nice. Because that's a lot easier to do. But I found that with some of the characters that we came across, including like Drew's character, which he will argue with me on it, but as he put last night, his character was a dick, but only to other people, or only to our party, because he was nice to all the NPCs except for us. But I realized that as a character, you know, just being nice or not realizing your implications sometimes doesn't excuse you from the reactions and the consequences. And to still be cautious, no matter how much you want to take in as knowledge or to go explore, you need to still keep your guard up no matter what. The prime example of that being me, I just wanted to read everything, and we were in a cult headquarters for Cyric, which is the god of murder. And I read something and it changed my alignment, trigger, to evil. And I went to go steal all the hemomancy and necromancy books, and they went to stop me from leaving, and I tried to kill my party. And it's all because they got too curious.
Nice.
So that experience like really left an impression on me, and it hardened the character a little bit. Like he was a ball of tears afterwards. And I felt bad because I was also manipulating the players outside of the game as a way to manipulate their characters.
Right.
And I felt bad. It felt good at the time. It felt bad afterwards.
It was so good.
Yeah. So role playing that character really hit home for me, I think.
Cool. I think potentially mine is a DM. I'm trying to think of one as a player, but usually I tend to sit on the DM side of the screen. So one that comes to mind is Torscore's character Gavin, who we played in a 2 series of play. It might have just been a one and a couple of one shots here and there. But there's some super emotional and powerful scenes that we had with his character and his wife, and it was very much a kind of Romeo and Juliet in awesome fantasy world sort of love tragedy, and that was really awesome to play through that. And super powerful scenes, and we went some pretty dark and some pretty deep places with that, and that was really fun and very kind of cathartic to play D&D, but to be kind of like feeling those feels, you know. So that his character was pretty awesome. And at the end of the day, I really loved his character because he's just basically a guy, and that was quite, you know, he's average Joe, but he's super buff and fighting for his love, and that was pretty cool. Yeah, the origin one shot, and then the end of the campaign was really fucking awesome with that. Samurai Sigil was the name of the campaign.
Yeah, that was such a good campaign.
Belonda, I guess you.
Whew. Probably the character that affected me the most, and she still does. I ran a game set in Fallout 3, kind of set in the UK, and it was really, really fun and really cool. And I played a girl she was out and out a complete psychopath. She was a very proficient, very good killer. She was very cold, very stone-hearted, but she cared about a particular small group of people, and although she'd be very quiet, the words she said were very succinct. She thought about a lot about what she was going to say, whereas I just tend to just spew verbal diarrhea everywhere. And although I listen, I don't always completely listen to what's going on, but she was very tactical and very calm and very precise in the way that she looked around at the world. And when she said something, every word had meaning. And I was going through a pretty rough period at the time. I think a lot of like hardcore role players basically do at some point. They go through something, and she kind of affected the way that I began to look at the world. I began to take a step back and go, okay, let's consider the consequences. She was, military mind. She considered like different ways of approaching battle and how to escape and stuff like that. Where I was personally stepping back and going, okay, well, if I say this to this person, then this may be the result if I say this person. So it actually made me stop and think about what I was thinking and saying and doing. And she had a really big effect on me, and it basically boosted my comps a lot more, because rather than just going and saying the first thing that came to my head, I had kind of like moments of clarity to figure out what was going on. She was probably the character that has actually affected me the most and continues to affect me even now. So
there you go.
I'm not a cold psychopath, by the way. I didn't pick up that trait.
I don't kill people in real life anymore.
I don't. I just slaughter entire villages of children. No, I'm joking. I don't. That's not me. As I have to keep telling Xanathar, I'm not the one with the drinking problem. That's someone else.
Yeah, play what you know is what I always say, right?
Nope. Not an alcoholic. Nope, not me.
Alright, let's find our next question then. So, we have one here. What's your favourite weird magic item? I had I'm trying to think of one. I think it was called the Angry Pants, and it was I was never charged. The pants that just swore constantly at the wearer and anyone who came nearby, and they were quite fun. They were just like a stupid fucking magic item, they had no real relevance in the game, but it was quite funny. Oh, and there was, I think, Tracy's character, it was a wild magic surge, and every time he threw his spear, it would insult him. Every time he attacked him with his weapon, it insults him. So he'd throw the spear and be like, "Your shit!" as he threw it. It was a lot of fun. What about you guys?
Valanda, you first, because I need to look up the name of it. I know exactly what it is.
I don't know what the name is. It was just one of those like lists of really stupid random D&D things which have no consequence or real use in the world, and it was the bagpipes of invisibility. So when you played them, you became invisible. It was beautiful. I was like, that's my favorite stupid D&D magic item. It's just too beautiful. I wish I had an opportunity to put them in the game, but say we don't actually play D&D that much, so.
Mine was actually from the Adventure Zone. It is called the Nitpicker.
Yeah, that's so good.
So good. So what the Nitpicker was it was a little gnome that would unlock things for you, but the entire time you would use it, it would insult you. It was so good. Like every time I was like, what, you can't do this yourself? Like, what's the matter with you? You're short, you're terrible, you're fat. It's just the entire time. So you just had to deal with the bullshit like when you're unlocking things. It was great.
Yeah, that was such a great item. That was so well invested.
I love all of these ideas. We need to add them all into the guide to everything. Xanathar's guide to everything needs to include these items, and if not,
Absolutely.
then it is not the guide to everything. Okay, and I will be sending it back. So
I would say the Adventure Zone's community puts in the items that they get at their like fantasy Costco.
The fancy Goshapon, yeah.
Yeah, and they come up with some of the best things. It's like the community-driven stuff. They have so much imagination for items that you'd never think of, but they're brilliantly done.
That's interesting. Okay. Next question is: has the Druid been nerfed in 5e, or is she still a good class? I always feel like the Druid's is quite a powerful class in 5th edition.
Yeah.
The wild shape in particular is real good. Real good. And they can do quite a lot of things as well, Druid. Healing, tanking.
They're very, very versatile.
Yeah, I mean, look at Keyleth in Critical Role, like how she is now. She is a powerhouse of spells and hit points, and like she can turn into some crazy shit now. And she'll just eat up hit points because every time you wild shape, you get like that hit point amount, and so it's just soaking up hit points. I would definitely not say they're nerfed or weak, but maybe at like beginning level. But everybody really is. But the more they level up, they hurt.
Yeah. In every game that I've seen a Druid wild shape and go fucking crazy, they go ham. So, I think they're still
they go big or they go home.
Yeah, I don't know how to compare it to previous editions, honestly. It's been so long since I've played 4th edition to remember how good it was, and 3.5 I'm not well versed enough to say if it's better or worse, but generally comparing those is difficult anyway to suggest, but she can turn into a goldfish. Well,
she certainly did.
Gotta look out.
Yes, absolutely.
Gotta look out in Xanathar's guides. It looks like there's a beholder looking at that goldfish.
Genuinely listening to that episode where she turns into a goldfish, I genuinely spat my drink all across my laptop. I just was laughing so hard. It was the I'm a god thing, and then turns into a goldfish like, no, that's it. I need to go get a cloth clean up.
I was crying at work. Oh man, it was so good.
I had to pause it and go and speak to my housemate who also watches Critical Role. I was like, dude, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. It was great.
Oh, man. Yeah. Any more questions, guys? That's our first kind of battle question. If you have a question, of course, fire it in to us, and we would love to help you out with any of your...
Let's see if I've got any more questions for Josh.
Wrote them down in preparation.
Well, Josh and I had a conversation on Twitter just before we came on. And it's like, is there any questions you want me to ask? I'm like,
And the response was like, anything, which I know that...
he literally says,
anything.
Gladly talk.
Literally anything. It's on the table right now. This is
Question-wise, anything. There's D&D, TI, Once and Future Word, how... Nerd. Once and Future Nerd.
Once and Future Nerd.
How my job helps with what I do for podcasting, what I look for and enjoy in other shows. That's a good one. What do you look for and enjoy in other shows? Being that we all consume D&D and role-playing games, what do you actually look for? Do you look for the way that people play the rules, they play around the rules, the way they play the characters, or genuinely just the roleplay aspect? Or is it just like viewer decision stuff, or is it just absolute hilarity? Would you prefer seriousness? There's so much we can throw out there.
There's a lot of different options out there, but the ones I've seen primarily, and Adventures Anonymous and Taking Initiative are very prime examples of this, is we concentrate on story, because you can go there let me start over a little bit. The players need to have a really solid chemistry between them, because you're going to be listening to them for a while. So you need to be able to get into their mindset, and you don't mind listening to them or taking in what they're saying. Their humor part of it is great because you know that they're having a fun time. That's great. But if the story can't support that, then you're just listening to a bunch of people talk all the time, and that's not necessarily fun or engaging for a long period of time. For me, at least. This is completely just opinion, obviously. But the story is what keeps you for me, or keeps me for me. So Adventures Anonymous, like, Will, your story so far is like, I'm super hooked in. Like, everybody's backstory is fantastic. Every single episode, you leave it on a bigger cliffhanger every single time. And it just keeps pulling you in all the time and depressing the characters and the players to a point that you just want them to be
die.
Okay and die, either one.
Somebody sent me a hug the other day on Twitter. I'm like, oh,
Yeah, like
that was so sweet.
even the episode where it was just talking to Umbra like the entire time was
gosh.
amazing. It was just pure backstory, but you can tell that everybody was fully into it and it was engaging. And then you go like towards Critical Role aspect. That I know they're professional actors and such, but their chemistry together is, you can tell they're such great friends and thoroughly enjoy what they're doing. And Mercer's story and world is unbelievably phenomenal. And then you can pop over to something that is a little bit more, I guess, comedy based, like D&D is for Nerds, where you enjoy Adam's DMing and just the players have fun in his world, but he just keeps on driving it home, and these little tiny story arcs that you can't just help but love because they're a funny group of bastards. They really are. But primarily what I would say to break it down is the players get me hooked and the story keeps me there. That's it for me.
Yeah, I think it depends on my mood as well. You know, like you mentioned, if I'm feeling something funny, I go watch something funny. You know, or if I'm feeling like I want to get really invested in a story, then you go to other content. And it's a really nice thing about D&D in general as well, not just in terms of content which is produced, but in terms of games that you can just play at home. Is you can totally just set the mood for the own content that you guys want to take in, basically. It's like, do we want to have fun together and just laugh all the time, or do we want to sit down and play something more serious? And that's is a really nice spectrum in D&D, that you can basically do whatever kind of style and theme that you enjoy doing the most, or that you feel like doing on the night, and then you have it, and that's what's really fun for me. Also, I barely get time to watch D&D streams or podcasts because I'm like, there's so much D&D in my brain. Try and avoid sort of burnout.
It's good to like step back there and absorb other mediums and other content which isn't just around the role-playing world. If you're developing stuff here, because if you don't experience other things in other lives, you can't put them into your games. you hit that creative wall at some point. So yeah. Yeah, but I'll pretty much hark back to what Will said. Basically, it's what you're ever in the mood for. At least for me, if I want to listen to something hilarious, I will go listen to something hilarious. If I want to listen to something that feels like, you know, I'm listening into a bunch of my mates playing, I will go listen to TI because you guys just crack me up so much.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're most welcome. You're what I listen to when I eat my breakfast in the morning.
Yes.
Yes.
You're breakfast listening material.
You are. You stopped me from working the other day. Good job. Or if I want to listen to something more serious, I'll probably actually, to be fair, mostly listen to Critical Role, or I'll come back and listen to some of our older episodes, mainly because I need to write down notes for the future.
There you go. All right.
Right, I think that's covered us to the new set of questions, right?
Yeah. What's your least favorite class or archetype, and why? Or class and archetype, I guess. Least favorite. I mean, it's difficult to say, isn't it? Is it from a mechanic standpoint why I just like it, or is it just something that I just don't think is particularly cool? Because I think there are a couple of them that are like a little bit unsexy that I think, you know, maybe could be cooler. I've generally thought in the past that the sorcerer could be cooler, but I don't know if it's my least favorite. It's difficult to pinpoint exactly what my least favorite one is. I also think that rogues can be ridiculously overpowered in certain scenarios and groups. So I have a little bit of a problem with that. Thematically, I don't really have a problem with any of the classes in particular. I wish that the rogues, arcane trickster would see a little bit more play. Maybe that would be tweaked a little bit different because I feel like it gets really underplayed at the moment. And aside from the ranger, I think was a question as well, because obviously the ranger and the PHB I really don't like that much. The revised ranger, however, is fantastic. So bit of a half dodging answer there, I guess, really. But there's nothing I really hate in the game. I tend to just like see the things that I like and then just not use stuff I don't like that much. What about you guys?
Me personally, it's not that I hate the class. It's just that I tend to play, as I was saying before, magic casters. Like I usually stick towards wizards or warlocks and such. So anyone who's just a straight up fighter for me, I tend to stay away from because I get bored.
Yeah,
because I'm just attacking with the same weapon all the time, and unless you can think of like really solid flavor text all the time, it's the same thing
it's
over
a bit
and over.
dull, yeah.
Right. I like the ability, as you were saying before, with wizards, of how versatile they are. I like the fact that I have options, that I can apply different strategies to different situations, and that one time I can do fire, another one I can do ice. I like that choice rather than I have a sword, I'm going to hit something with it. But that's no hate towards the class itself, as in it's bad. That is a personal preference.
Fair enough. Yeah. I understand that as well. It can definitely get a bit grindy with the martial classes. Yeah. What about you, Valonda? I think we know what you're going to say.
All magic users ever. No. No, I would actually have to agree. Anything who's straight martial. I like to describe the things I'm doing. If I'm doing a magic spell, I would describe how that looks, or I'd describe the words I'm saying. If I'm playing a ranger, I would describe exactly how I'm going to be shooting the bow, or if I'm applying magic on the arrow, or any other such class. Same with healer, like paladins and clerics and stuff. You can speak to your god. But straight martial classes, things like fighters and barbarians, I find it very difficult because at the end of the day, you just go, bamf. There are many ways to describe how to hit someone over the head. But in the heat of the moment, when you've described the coolest thing you can think of at the moment, everything else pales in comparison, and that's when I tend to lose it. So yeah, I'm actually the same. I tend not to play.
Yeah,
I try not to play straight fighter martial characters anymore.
Yeah, I don't think I'd say it's necessarily martial classes. I think maybe just more so certain archetypes of fighter get like that. Because with like barbarian, you've got a lot of other mechanics going on and cool stuff like that. Whereas sometimes with fighter, it does seem like the most vanilla that you can go with a class.
I guess the exception that actually I just wrote that down in chat is actually monks, because monks have the whole flipping thing going on, and I can describe that for days, especially if there's any sort of like environment around. Like if there's a ledge bigger than like an inch, that's it. I will stand on that and I will flip my way around that crap. I love that kind of just because you can describe it in so many different ways, and that's why I kind of monks are probably the exception to the rule, I guess.
I like monks. Cool. Okay, so badass. Question: since Apocalypse Now is being forged into a game, would you play the game and be a dirty American soldier? Example: shooting up villages. I mean, I've pillaged a village or two in my time in role-playing games. I can't deny. It's possible. I'd play it. Yeah. I mean, I like Apocalypse type games. We're playing Mutant Year Zero at the moment. That's been a lot of fun. Very kind of Stalker universe, mixed with a bit of Fallout and Mad Max. So, yeah, probably. I mean, I like most role-playing games, honestly. It's like there's like the thing with role-playing games is it's not which ones do I like. Yeah, I pretty much like all tabletop role-playing games. Is which ones do I like particularly feel so interested in that I go out and buy it, or I take the time to read it. Usually it's a time thing more than anything else. Because I write off buying books as quote unquote expenses, so it's work, obviously. So usually it's a time thing. Does Apocalypse? I mean, personally, Apocalypse Now isn't something which I'm like so into that I'd really really want it. But who knows? I'll probably give it a try sometime. What about you guys? Apocalypse Now, yay, nay?
Valanda?
Probably, yeah. It's not like I haven't slaughtered an entire village in any of my role-playing games. I probably would, actually. I mean, it'd be interesting to play.
Historical stuff is cool,
Yeah, I've not really played so much historical stuff, but I probably would play that. I would at least give it a go. And if I didn't really like it, I'm like, well, that's it for me, and then walk out. But no, I would probably at least give that a shot. That'd be interesting.
If like someone pitched like, I'm going to DM this game, then yes. And if I was playing it, I probably wouldn't go out there and buy the book and learn how to DM it. Likely. Ever tried weather in D&D? Like cold and heat in some places. Coming from sunny England, of course, I'm very familiar with only sun. No, yeah, I guess nothing in terms of like the weather of the day, which is particularly mechanic. You know, it's raining today, so you have a -1 to your perception score, and this is like obstructive terrain or environments like fog, heavy fog, or mists. Yeah, I mean. Stuff like that, and in terms of like being in really hot places, you know, like magma fields, that's an environmental hazard, or you know, ice pits, then yeah, I suppose I have. Weather isn't necessarily a thing which I tend to have on like my checklist of things that I need to include in everyday things, you know, because I feel like that's a slippery slope. You know, let's think of what the weather is today. Where is this NPC today, and this NPC, and what exactly are they saying this at this time, and so on. Tend to handwave that kind of thing. But you know, I'll mention the weather I think quite regularly if it's particularly interesting, or to set the tone. You know, if it's raining outside and it gets gloomy. Yeah. If it's misty, it's creepy. You know.
It's called pathetic. I think it's called pathetic fallacy. Where you use, yeah, you use the weather to reflect a particular mood. Like if they're sad and crying and they're standing over a gravesite, of course it's going to be raining. You know, if they've just met the love of their life, of course the sun will come out and a rainbow will be there. That's kind of just like part and parcel setting up. But yeah, I don't mention the weather unless it's really, really important, or if I want to set a tone, like you say.
I particularly used it in Curse of Strahd. Like I felt like that was incredibly important. Like it's so foggy all the time, but when they're walking, if you want them to take longer to get somewhere, or if you wanted to really make it dreary, just say it's pouring rain, you're slopping through mud. It's, you know, it's taking a while. Your cart gets stuck in the mud. Like that could just easily be a quick turnaround from the weather into a plot device. It's like you're now stuck. But I never used it as anything really other than a descriptor for the environment, setting the tone, as you were saying. Like,
atmosphere.
Yeah,
it's depending on you're right. Depending on the tone of the game, it can be much more important to do it. So, for instance, if we're out on we're just hitting the trail today, and it's a sunny day, you know, like not particularly interesting, you know, like it's slightly overcast today. Oh no!
There are cirrus clouds.
Yes, expect rain on heavy fronts. Yeah, an easterly wind is pushing in today. In fact, I was talking on Twitter to some folks yesterday, DM Leviathan and a couple of others, and talking about having a D&D newscaster, an NPC that I used to have in one of my campaigns, who was a caster in a very magical sense of the term, who would talk about the weather and control the weather each day for the city, and that was quite fun. So I guess in that respect, I really thought about the weather, but that was only as a bit of a joke, really, a bit of a goof. Setting tone, and I mean it really is for like the creepy stuff. I usually find like games like Call of Cthulhu, I find myself thinking about the environment and the temperature as well. You know, so it's super cold in this room, and you know you feel the hairs on the back of your neck sticking up, and that sets the tone a bit more than just it's a cold day outside. You know. All right, let's move on. So Love Puppy asks, how do you encourage role playing in games? Any ticks? I've got a tick. Any tips or tricks that you can use? I mean, this is one we've talked about a couple of times in the past, encouraging potentially newer players or players who have been maybe stuck in their ways, as you know, this is a meat grinder game and we only care about rules, but maybe you as a DM are looking to encourage more role playing that maybe you've seen in various different games or have heard is a lot of fun. Any tips or tricks for that, Josh, that you use in your games?
Particularly like since I was saying, like Bucky, Drew, and I have played for a while, and we do just goofy accents, like just for the hell of it, because why not? And it helps us just kind of loosen up at the table, and especially like in Curse of Strahd, where it's so dark, you want that humor to counterbalance. So we throw in those voices as a way of getting into character. But for someone who's like Nick or Donna, who was relatively new to the game, what we end up saying is whenever they're describing what they're doing, we go, cool, what do you say in character to go and do that? Like, you have the idea of what you want to do, say it in character. That way we get the tone and your exact meaning of how you want to go about things. And kind of pinning it on them to do that is a good way to do it. But it's also important to keep in mind that some people aren't comfortable with certain ways of role-playing. Some people don't like doing voices. Some people don't like, talking in character. They'd rather describe their actions. So don't push players if they feel uncomfortable. Let them sink into it into their own time, because that's the way that they're going to have the most fun. But giving them opportunities to do so is a nice way to try and hook them in. But people have fun in different ways, so just keep that in mind so you don't push them too hard, because it might scare them or make them embarrassed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually really good advice. We have a player, and we've been role playing for quite a while, and we were all getting into our characters and stuff. And she was fairly new at it, and she did used to say, "My character does this," and she wouldn't say anything in a character voice. She wouldn't have any like outside conversation with anyone. She would describe particularly what she was doing. Is that my character goes and hits him. And that was the extent of it. It was literally very mechanical. I go hit this person, and that was kind of the extent of it. It takes a while for people to get comfortable, and it takes a while for people to develop their own style. So I try not to push how I like to roleplay on other people, because at the end of the day, we should all be friends, and we should all be okay with everyone playing the game their own way. There are six different universes happening. But giving them opportunity is a good way of doing that. I mean, I'm running a game where there was by necessity a lot of travel in it. They're in space, they're in a spaceship, and I could just go, yes, you jump through the Maze ring and then you're at your destination. But I give them the chance to use that time to talk to each other, because they do a lot of things in their characters, like they'll go have this conversation with this character, or they'll randomly shoot this person, no one knows why. There generally is always a reason for it, because my group players are pretty good at that. I always ask the why question and the how question, and I go, right, okay, so you have 3 hours of traveling. Does anyone want to go talk to anyone about anything? Does anyone want to say anything? Would you like to talk to him about it? Or, or if they really are struggling and no one actually has any inter-character information, or just like roll a dice, like, right, well, you two find yourselves repairing something in the cockpit, off you go, and then, leave them to it. Just give them the opportunity to do it, and don't push too hard. Just let them find their own way. They will all get there. If they enjoy it, they will get there. So
I think a lot of the time when people aren't role playing, but as long as they understand what role playing is and that they want to do it, I think first a lot of the time that can be an issue, that they don't realize exactly how you would like the game to be played, or how you perceive the game should be played, and that usually is that the perceptions are on a different level there. So make sure that they understand that this game, or the way that your group plays, is like this, and that's what you like to encourage in this game for whatever reason. Secondly, a lot of the time when they understand that, is they're doing it in their head. A lot of people are role-playing in their head, but I find it difficult to vocalize it. And I find it difficult to separate what they're thinking from what they actually are acting and verbalizing. A lot of the time when you find that decisions that characters are making, or players are making for their characters, that they don't make sense, it's because they're thinking about something in their head, but they're not verbalizing it to you, and so you can't understand the decision very well. And when they start to begin to vocalize that, that's when you can really understand what's going on in that character's head, and why they're making the decisions they're making. So something that you can do as a DM or as a player as well is to ask them what they're thinking. So how's your character feel about this right now? How does how are you reacting in your mind to this right now? And that gets them thinking about that, and it makes them vocalize what they're thinking as well. And that's basically the key aspect of role playing, is to understand what the person that you're playing is thinking, and then saying it to the rest of the group so that we can understand it. And that can work quite well, and the players can do that as well. You can turn to another player and say, what's your character thinking right now? And sometimes what I like to do at the beginning of sessions is to just go inside the mind of each character and understand where they are at the beginning of the game. and say, so what is this person thinking right now? And give me a couple of lines about where you are and what you're thinking of doing, and how they're reacting to the situation. And it helps me when a DM does that, for me as a player as well, because then I'm thinking, oh, this is where I am right now, and then I'm in that space quite easily, because sometimes you don't think about these things. So that's a tip or trick, I suppose, I picked up to try and encourage that, just to get them thinking about it first of all, and then it becomes easier and easier the more they do it. So
they start doing it as like second nature in the end.
I would say, like, I did have a DM in the past who it forced us to roleplay or only say what our character is going to say, because he had the rule of, if you say it, it happens. So
we have that.
We had someone who's like, oh, I'm just gonna slice the dwarf's throat. You're like, ha ha ha. Okay, cool. You just did it. You're like, no, dude, we had to ask him questions. He's like, I was kidding. They're like, no, you said it at the table, so I guess that's what happens.
Right.
And it forced us to go, okay, we're gonna talk as our characters. It eliminated a lot of side talk and concentrated more on the game. So that kind of rule, it can get a little intense because you can have an argument of like, I didn't mean that. Right. But if you solidify that as a rule very early on or push it in, it's a good way to kind of hone in the role play.
Yeah, we've got a way of dealing with that. The system that we set up, we have like a certain pool of like points where we go, okay, I retract that statement. I didn't say that. I didn't mean to do that. I shot him in the face. You now get jumped by 30 of his mates. Yeah, it's not going to go. I'm going to retract this. We use a pool of points for that. But we use cucumber. We literally go, if we're trying to say something out of character, like cucumber, wouldn't it be funny if I just punched him in the face? Like, yeah, that's kind of cool. And then we allowed that, and then rescind the cucumber and sort of start again.
Rescind the cucumber.
Yeah, I think I've mentioned it before about cucumbers in this one, and I think I've said it a couple of times on the cast as well by accident. But yeah, if we want to say or do something out of character and we just think it's too funny not to bring up, we'll just say like, cucumber, I'm going to shoot this dude in the face because this would be the funniest thing ever, and then allow that small talk, and then you can bring it back again. Or for us, it tends to be because we all have very particular sets of information that we know. Like, we have a person playing a medic and they know nothing about medicine, same as I know nothing about guns. So we'd go, cucumber, I think your character would know this because I know this about guns, or I know this about medic, and we give the meta information that way so that they can then have it in character. We also do that as well, but yeah, we always do the hands up cucumber moment if we're talking out of character. Yeah.
I like it. Enforce a couple of rules about that, I suppose. And I think the most important thing is to understand what role-playing is, in your opinion. Because perceptions of what role-playing is varies wildly from one player to another. And especially between, like, generations and, like, editions of play, for instance. And, indeed, like, what town you're in. I played D&D in one town for a long time, and it was very much one way, and then you come to a new city, a new town, and people play it completely differently. It's almost like a new game, and it's weird, but you have to then adapt. And I found that, depending on where you are and who you're playing with, the perception of what role-playing actually means is completely different. So the way which I play is, kind of wrong in this group. That's not how they do it, and so I have to adapt and say, okay, well, this is how these guys do it, and that's fine, So if a player is not role-playing and you want to encourage them more to, make sure that they know what you're talking about, because you could be talking about a whole range of different things that maybe terms that don't make sense to this person, especially if they're new. Is it okay? Is it like you want to do it like Critical Role? Is it like you want to do it like Adventurers Anonymous? Do you want to do it like TI? Give examples as well. It's really easier than ever to give like very clear examples of exactly what you mean nowadays, because there are YouTube videos for it, there are Twitch streams, there are podcasts. Send them a link to something and say, this is what I'm talking about, is what I'd like to be doing, and they might not like it, and they might not want to do it, and that's perfectly valid. Ultimately you can't make someone play a certain way because they're not going to have fun. So a lot of the time what ends up happening is you find like a nice balance in between, a compromise. Okay, we'll do this as long as we get to do a bit of this as well. And that tends to be the case, because iron fisting, you must play this way at my table, you'll end up not having any people at your table eventually, or just the ones that enjoy playing the exact same way that you do, which I guess is fine. But it's not a nice way to make friends sometimes.
Turning to someone and saying your fun is wrong. Nah,
yeah.
Don't do it. Don't be a Roger. Don't do that.
Yeah. I mean, your fun is different, and it's not the kind of fun that we have at this table. Is like fine, if like one person's way of playing is so completely different from the rest of the group that you're not just meshing. I mean, that's a different scenario. But yeah, usually people in games are more than happy to find some kind of compromise, and so that ultimately you can all play the game that you enjoy. Because that's what D&D is about, basically. Should we play a game together? Yeah. Do you want to be a dick about it? No, not really. All right, cool. We'll play, and that works out well most of the time. Okay, so Bomber asked, do you ever do epic encounters or high-level lair assaults? What kinds, and how do you handle them, such as fighting dragons, liches, dem big baddies? Damn big bad booty monsters. Yeah, I guess. Not like super regularly. Usually they're like the end of campaigns. Or the end of story arcs or seasons. Because you kind of build up to fighting big bads. But yeah, I've done plenty of big dragon encounters, lich encounters, assaults on fortresses, huge warfare. Done a lot of those sieges. I love doing a siege. Yeah, plenty of those, I guess. I tend not to do them every encounter or every session. It's now a huge fight against the Lich or whatever. But yeah, I guess quite commonly in the past I've done some big fights with big bads and they've been fun. How do I handle them? I guess is another question. Usually they are like I mentioned at the end of campaign, so everyone's like really geared up for a fight, and you know that the session is going to be the fight against the big bad. And that's what the players are totally ready for. Rather than, this is going to be one of Will's fucking role-playing sessions where we talk about our feelings. It's not going to be that.
I don't want to talk about my feelings, I just want to hit you with a hammer.
I want to hit things. Yeah. So usually people are on board with that, and then you have a bit of a big fun combat session at the end, or the climax to something. Like large-scale warfare is a little bit differently, I guess, but I tend to handle that more narratively. Yeah. What about you guys? Big bad fights? How do you do them? Are they fun?
Josh.
I personally have not run a big bad fight. Probably the biggest fight I did was with you guys on Wednesday, which was supposed to be a sit around and chat session.
Right.
But turned into a gigantic mind flayer fight.
Yeah, that happened.
Awesome. That was probably the biggest, most epic kind of fight feel that I've had. Most of the campaigns we've done, we never really got too high of level just because life happens.
Right.
And Strahd, I'm waiting for it. It will happen, I hope, before they all die or not die. So that will definitely be something in the future, and I'll have my first experience running one of those. But how to run it, that is something that I will have to wait and see.
So you'll be taking advice from us now, huh?
I certainly am. So go on.
Dear. Oh dear. Please go on. I try not to let it dissolve into dice rolling. So you get to sometimes when you face the big monster, or whatever, the big dragon with 300 hit points or something, I try not to let it dissolve into the point where it's just, and I'm going to roll dice and remove numbers. I'm going to roll dice and remove numbers, because that is so boring, especially if you've got a big group of people, because then you are waiting forever, and you bet your bottom dollar magic users are never bloody ready. So it just dissolves into dice rolling. So I use things like I would change the environment after a couple of rounds, and now this happens, a bit of the ceiling falls down because the dragon hits it with his tail, and there's a new thing to encounter, or I throw a potential trap in there as if they've gone round, or they hit in rage mode. I try and keep changing it just so it's not just new set of dice rolls, new set of dice, because that is quite boring. And as a DM, when I hit that point when I feel bored, I bet my bottom dollar my players are bored, and then I just right, baff it out. I did do one other really big boss fight, and I handled it in a narrative way because we were running out of time, and it was 8:30.
Wicked dice. Oh no!
It was 8:30 in the morning, and Josh, you were there, you know what it was. And it essentially got to the point where we were running out of time. There was a big boss battle, and they started rolling the dice and everything. And then I kind of well, it's 8:30 in the morning. We're doing this for 4 hours. Everyone throw your best thing at it, and we'll see what happens.
And it was memorable. It stuck with us. It was fantastic.
Yes. everyone threw like their most insane thing at it. I think Neil ended up throwing. He had a ring which stored 8 different wolves in it or something. The barbarian refused to leave and just hit it a few more times. Someone summoned a spiritual weapon which were peanuts, and it was the greatest thing ever. Someone else's spiritual weapon was an oven, and there's a bunch of other completely random shit in there. And we just threw it all together, and then I went narratively, well, this is what happens with the big boss fight, and then it died. And it was the funniest game I think I have ever played. So again, it depends on it really depends on how long I've got left, how bored I'm getting, because if I'm bored, my players are going to be bored, and whether it's dissolved into dice battles. So just keep it changing and flowing and stuff. Otherwise, I say you don't want it to dissolve into dice rolling, because that's just boring and not particularly memorable either.
Yeah, there was a really good module that came out called Domes of Ishak-Zahur, and that's probably
that's amazing.
My favorite go-to for sort of how to keep boss battles interesting. It depends how like strictly you do HP and stuff like that with monsters as well. I tend to be quite flexible with things. Once you feel like things are getting slow, you're like, oh, it dies. But yeah, Domes is a really interesting way of doing that with changing encounters and the dynamics of the encounters. You know, the pillars falling quite regularly. There's a trap aspect. There's usually more than just one aspect of fighting the creature and rolling to hit it each turn. Yeah, there's like 2 or 3 things going on at the same time. The boss creature activates its, mechanisms and traps, and you're fighting against that along with, the actual fight of the creature itself. Yeah, I'll write this for you down, Bomber. Domes of Ishak-Zahur. There's actually a review of it on my website. I think we were sponsored by them earlier last year to play the game. I had a great time doing it.
I'm writing that down for myself as well.
Yeah,
it's really good.
It's
but
cool
on
traps as
Kickstarter,
well.
it's pretty good. It's really interesting. They've got loads of different ways of, say, changing up boss battles and doing your basic dungeon dives and stuff. They're really good and really cool. I definitely recommend getting it for people who use that sort of thing a lot.
Very Tomb of Horror and Egyptian themed as well. So it's pretty cool stuff. Yeah, I actually tend to do boss fights more traditionally than I do everything else. I feel like that's the one part of the game that one aspect of the game that I tend to not want to fluff because it feels more important. And so usually I'll just fluff the shit out of most things. And be like, oh no, look, that guy's dead. You guys are so good. Wow. And then for boss fights, it tends to be more, let's actually not mess with the rules so much and play it more traditionally. And the several of the groups that I've played with when we do that, and the chat as well, have very much enjoyed that aspect of, oh shit, this game is like stepping up a bit more now, and we've got to figure out what our abilities actually do rather than saying, I do the fucking missile thing and it goes off here. And that aspect of the game, like the tactical aspect, which I tend to never play at all, that tends to be the only time I end up actually doing that, is in like high tension boss battles where it needs to be. I don't know, it just feels more valid to like use the rules and mechanics than any other time in the game. Because usual encounters, I'm like, yeah, fucking kill these guys, whatever, let's just go and let's get on the actual story and whatnot. But boss battles, I tend to be more hard line, more meat grindery, because that's the fun. That's the fun thing about boss battles, is that you get to use all your shit and kill them.
Yeah, I think at that point, because we've done a couple of fights where it's been like, yes, this is the fight, we are doing mechanics. It feels like, from going with there's very little like rules and meta to going, here's a bunch of rules, oh fuck, crap, I actually need to pay attention now.
Yeah.
It's one way of ramping up texture. It's actually it's a pretty effective means from this side of the table.
Yeah, I think it's just a bit of a change in tone, which is like, oh, we're stepping up things. Similarly to how Ren mentioned before, like turning on meat grinder mode. I guess that's a little bit what I do there. It's like turning on a higher difficulty mode for this particular encounter.
Wait, you've turned all of our DC saving throws into 15?
I would,
oh shit.
That's something I'm considering just doing anyway. So
you should do. I think it's great. I think it's a brilliant
DC 19
change.
saving throw.
Okay, no, I will die in seconds.
Oh man. Alright. Will you ever do a World War II styled campaign? Possibly. I mean, I don't have any immediate plans. We've been planning for the past couple of weeks for the next season of the game, and I can tell you that on the show, there's no World War II style campaign planned immediately, but that doesn't mean that in the near to far future there may be something like that. I mean, ideally, Encounter Roleplay is about playing a diversity of a bunch of different games and a bunch of settings and styles with a bunch of different people, so most likely yes at some point or another. But I don't imagine that will happen anytime particularly soon. It's certainly an area of history which really, really interests me, and we've been playing Call of Cthulhu, which is set just after the First World War, the Great War. So it's entirely possible that if we continue to play that campaign, that we actually end up going into the Second World War, which I think would be interesting. Second World War of Cthulhu. It's a bit like the game Acton Cthulhu, which is fantastic, and I'd quite like to play that.
Game.
So I think if I ever
Such a great game.
I think if I ever did end up playing a World War II style game, it would probably be in the Acton Cthulhu universe and that kind of setting, and set it like a horror piece rather than necessarily you guys are soldiers in fighting on the forefront and whatnot with guns and stuff like that. But you never know. You never know with me. I can do anything. It all depends on what day.
Depends on what side of the bed you wake up on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What about you guys? World War II?
Me personally, I mean, if it had like a Cthulhu feel, or like I just had an idea of the beginning of Hellboy, like something.
That is exactly what I was thinking.
Like something like that would be probably good. Strictly World War II, I don't think would interest me personally.
Right.
But if you threw like a fantasy or supernatural kind of feel to it, probably.
Yeah. I think it's potentially, it's obviously a time of great strife, and historical stuff has, tons of stuff that you can do with it, which always ends up being quite interesting. And I really like the idea, in general, of alternate histories. And playing in worlds of alternate histories. So, in that aspect, I could see myself getting interested in it. Although I've always been more interested in ancient history and medieval history rather than like modern history. So that's a personal choice. I've always been more into, when I was a kid, I was into swords, not guns, and I was into horses, and wargs rather than tanks. Whereas I think my dad's generation may be more interested in it. Like, he does loads of model airplaning, and he's got like little toy soldiers and stuff like that. But maybe I just got into the right kind of peak time when Lord of the Rings came out, and I was kind of absorbed into that. So I've never particularly had a huge interest into. Why not both? That could be interesting. I don't know. Valanda, World War II.
I would have to put a spin on it somehow. I like modern era, probably from like, I don't know, Victorian age, like to now. That kind of period of time doesn't really interest me all that. It's just not. Yeah, I think you're saying for me, it's always been like swords and axes and shields and crossbows and stuff. Whereas I'm not particularly been into like guns and tanks and stuff. Yeah, I think there'd have to be some sort of twist in it for me to be really interested in play it. I'd definitely give it a go, because if you put the letters R and P anywhere nearby, I'll probably be there. But yeah, I think it would have to be some sort of twist for me to really get my head into it. But other than that, yeah, the Hellboy that you were talking about earlier, that was when my brain literally first went to like, ooh, that could be fun.
Yeah, I think, and most settings can be made particularly interesting. And especially, it's. I always find with the right DM, I could play in pretty much any historical setting and it'd be really interesting. Someone who is like particularly knowledgeable about stuff like that, it always makes the game feel more authentic for me. For instance, I wouldn't feel comfortable DMing a World War II campaign as such because I'm not a World War II kind of buff or modern history sort of buff. Whereas I really enjoyed getting the chance to play Imperator set in ancient Rome. Because that's the area of history which I studied and I'm particularly interested in. And the players are saying, "Oh, this is great because our DM, he's really into it and he can tell us a bunch of questions about the world and answer us some questions and make it feel authentic." And I felt the same way when I played in Cthulhu campaigns, set in 1920s and all when someone really knows their shit about it, it's like, oh, this world feels really, really cool because this person knows what they're talking about. And makes it feel quite real, makes it feel like an actual period piece. So
there's also the feel that this is common sense, but just the thing that happens is the more you know about something, the more passionate you are about it, the better you can talk about it and make others also feel how you feel about it.
Yeah.
So even if the players aren't necessarily fully into the concept or know everything, the DM is and can really output that excitement. It could be contagious for the players.
Yeah.
So I feel you. I would not be able to DM something like that because I feel like I wouldn't be able to do justice to the setting. But if someone was able to do that, I would gladly play in that because I would be excited no matter what because they're running the game beautifully.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the world building. It's the same as if we went to a fantasy setting. You need to know, a degree of how. Well, basically, you need to know what's going on around you, and you need to be able to flesh out the world. And if someone asks a question, you'd be able to answer it because hey, it comes from your brain. And knowing that it's a set period in history, you already have a rough idea. You know that the laws of physics in this world are this, and being able to go, oh, well, I know about that. And you've given me that more information, so that begins to feel more. It's the same principle. It's being able to build the world around. And if you're going to set it in a certain time period, and you go say this is the time period, there are no real major changes, and having that knowledge there, it's great as a player. Just it's infecting them with passion is probably a good way of phrasing that.
Yeah. You could do Vampire Masquerade Ancient Rome. See, I could do Vampire. I feel like you could set Vampire pretty much anywhere, and that could be a really cool spin. For instance, vampires in World War II. That would be really cool. Immediately I'm thinking of a cool band or regiment of vampires involved in the war. Or
I so thought you meant when you said band, like a literal band.
A literal band, yeah.
A band of World War II.
You take
a literal band of them. That would be amazing.
You take bards and you take the extra vampire prestige class homebrew. And you set it in World War II, and away you go, my friends. Away you go.
Well, you know what your next series is going to be.
Yeah, it's all set out now. It's all laid out before me.
Play that.
Yeah, I mean, I think with some settings, just adding in an extra cool element of fantasy or weird or horror just makes them a bit more exciting. Because a lot of the time with historical stuff, it feels like, well, it's been done, so why do it? But it's kind of mundane, isn't it? We don't actually get to do any spells, or there's no fantasy element to it. But World War II with magic would be really cool. That's the same principle behind again the Imperator campaign. Is what if all of the beliefs of the Greeks and the Roman gods were actually real, and there were beasts manifesting, and there was magic which is very much real, and the gods were actually on Mount Olympus, and that's the kind of what if idea for historical stuff that really makes it interesting for me. What if vampires were actually the Nazis? What if Nazis were actually all Cthulhu cultists and they're trying to summon Dagon in the middle of London? That's the premise behind Actum Cthulhu. It's fantastic, and those what if scenarios are always pretty interesting to me. And the same with modern world stuff. I've never been able to connect with particularly well. Modern city life, because it seems so mundane, real.
Yeah, I think we had this conversation before. It probably was on Table Talks again about doing modern day stuff. So if I wanted to roleplay in the modern day world, I would walk out my office and pretend to give a fuck.
Yeah, look into the void.
And that would be my role playing. It's I see role playing lots of escapism. So. Yeah. I don't want to be playing. I have a player who will play Joe Average because that's how he sees himself. It's why don't you break the mold a bit? If you want to play an office worker in your role-playing life, I guess that's not a problem. But we literally have the scope to do anything. And I think if you want to do modern day, I'll walk outside and do that. That's for me why I don't particularly enjoy modern day settings. Let's say from Victorian age onwards. For me, it's just bored, done that. Why?
Lived that.
Yeah. I didn't actually tell you I'm 128, not...
Yeah, big surprise. Shit. She's actually a vampire. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm playing Vampire Masquerade right now.
That does tend to be the thing with games. It's you play games so that you don't have to be, living the terrible reality that is life. And so modern day stuff. But that being said, modern day stuff with a cool twist would be interesting. It's got vampires again, modern day, but with cool vampires from fantasy. That's cool to me, Modern day with Cthulhu being real could be interesting and actually quite terrifying. But yeah, the actual just plain settings of his history can be quite, I don't know, mundane perhaps. Needed something into them. But modern day, and then the fantasy world spills in. Now that's where the real magic happens. I could see that getting interesting. Yeah, have you guys ever played any historical worlds or modern day worlds? I think you mentioned it earlier, Belinda.
The closest to modern day world that we've played is Post-Apocalypse UK, where we played Fallout and I nuked the entirety of Sussex. That's probably as close to modern day as I've ever played.
I think actually, yeah. Go ahead, Joshua.
Mine was just I did a one-shot. I joined in Drew's Game of Cthulhu once. It was interesting to play modern day. We didn't really get too into crazy stuff in that session, but that was probably the closest. I'm not going to give any spoilers for things, but I'll be recording something where we're going to be playing another system dealing with superheroes at some point. And we're going to be mixing with another podcast for that. Again, I won't get it too far into it. But I'm excited to do that because modern day superhero stuff, that's fun. That's throwing a spin on it. That's getting to enjoy kind of being normal, but at the same time having that other life that we don't have now. So it is escapism by seeing the world as it is and building on it. Yeah,
and Suddenly Zombie Apocalypse is actually one we did a long time ago. I believe we ran we only ever ran one game of it on Encounter Roleplay just under 2 years ago, and there was like 2 people here. And we played the Zombie Apocalypse with me, Josh, James, and Beth. Names you guys probably don't recognize, other than Josh. And we all played characters in real life. So we played ourselves. So we played ourselves in the zombie apocalypse. You know that game that you play in high school where you're like, what happens right now if there's a zombie apocalypse? We played that game. It was absolutely hilarious. And I would actually love to do that again. It was really silly fun. And, plenty of, friends like, I'm going to kill you, throw you into a zombie. Good stuff. I kill your mom, who's now a zombie. It's very kind of Shaun of the Dead style. And, that was a good time. Lorelania was 7 months. Hilarious. Hi, how's it going? We're off to GexCon, or GexCon, with Lorelania and Sid in July in Virginia. So come meet us there. We'll be talking about D&D. It's gonna be a good time. The end of the world. What other, in terms of other modern day settings though, I haven't played in any. Oh, other than a couple of one-shots where it was a murder mystery, and that was pretty funny. But yeah, I can never find the attraction to stay in modern day in particular. It just bores me too much, because it's this is like if I walked out of my room right now, and now I'm not playing fun fantasy games, I'm playing real life simulator, which is not why I roleplay.
Yeah, if I wanted to do that, I'd go play Sims.
Yeah, go play Sims boy. Yeah. So okay, there's a question from a little while back. How do you deal with the moment when players bail on you after so much hard work creating your campaign for them? Man, that would suck. How does this black magic work? Yeah. How would you deal with that? I guess, Josh, you've been working on a campaign for a long time. You've been working on a world or a setting, just a story, an adventure, and players bail on it. That's probably a feeling which sucks, I'd imagine.
It does suck. I've felt that before, not in the sense that they bailed on it, but the fact that we bailed on it together. A while ago, I did a group chat text-based only campaign with Bucky, Drew, and Nick from Taking Initiative, because we all worked together. We all worked the night shift, and on my way home, I would text out the adventure, and that's how we would play. It was the only way that we were able to, and I planned ahead for it. I knew exactly where they would be going. We played a couple sessions. I was really excited to see where it would go, and everyone really loved the characters, but it became to a point that it was a little too much, and the medium with which we were playing was okay. It wasn't phenomenal. We kind of lost a little bit of the excitement from it. So we kind of bailed, and honestly, Mikhail from Taking Initiative was from that initial campaign. Drew loved his character so much that he just ported it over.
Nice.
But we really couldn't continue. And I was excited to see where it was going to go, but we just weren't able to hit it. And it was one of those things of just kind of live with it. We'll move on to the next campaign. It was all that work. And maybe that work will come up in a future game, which is always something to remember. Just because your initial campaign may not work, you can always take ideas from what you're doing or take that campaign and run it at another point in time. It's not just gone. You can just run it later. So your work is never lost.
Yeah, it's never truly lost, I suppose. Until you lose yourself. I get what you mean.
Delete your
or you delete your Word document, which I have done in the past, and I've forgotten to back stuff up before. But now Google Docs, and all of my life is on a Google document. Yeah, I get what you mean. I mean, that must really suck. You put a lot of hard work into a campaign, and if the players are not interested in not buying into it at the same point, or maybe you're not buying into it as much as you thought you would either. That's the feeling which always sucks when groups can't keep it together, when you can't keep it up in terms of D&D groups. I think, you just have to appreciate that there's players out there who will be interested in what you're doing. You just have to make sure that you find the right guys and that it is genuinely interesting, because one thing worth considering is what if it isn't actually interesting? What if it is kind of boring? Because I know I have had plenty of bad ideas in the past in terms of campaigns where people are like, how about this idea, guys? And everyone's like, yeah, and then you're like, pitch a genuinely good idea, and they're like, fuck yeah, let's play right now. And there's definitely a difference in player reaction for, let's play a game where everybody is dead and no one has any fun and I win, and the player's like,
the shit out of that game.
Yeah, that sounds like a good time. And then you're like, what if we play a game where we're all fucking sponges underneath the ocean? Everyone's like, fuck, let's do it, let's go right now, let's play. We're all playing dinosaurs. Then consider, what if it's just not particularly great idea, or potentially the group of players that you're playing with just aren't interested in it enough. Because I know that I have some specific interests that I really love so much, and no one else in the universe gives a shit about them. And that's why you have a girlfriend, so you can talk to shit about them, and they have to listen. But the rest of the world, unfortunately, doesn't care particularly about my specific love for really niche indie RPGs that no one actually plays, are still in alpha and never really got released 20 years ago. So but then I'm like, what if we play a game of Middle Earth? And everyone's like, let's fucking play right now, because everyone loves Lord of the Rings. So consider exactly what it is you're pitching to the players and how interested they might be in it. What about you, Valonda? You've worked hard on something, and that hard work feels like it's gone to waste.
I've only ever really had that feeling once, was when one of the newer players that she couldn't give a rat's ass about being here. So I read the room so everyone else was annoyed with it, and then spoke to her about it, and it was just because she was nervous and scared. But I felt really downhearted for absolutely ages, just looking across, and she was looking down or looking away and never being interested in something. And that, to be honest, it kind of broke my heart a little bit. It's like, oh, we put a lot of work into it. I considered your character. It was really awful. And eventually she did leave the group, but I did exactly as Josh just said. You pick it up and you recycle it and you put it somewhere else. Just consider it as if the character had accidentally died. It's kind of how I go with it. It's like, you can't backtrack some of that stuff. So just consider it it's a campaign that didn't work. It doesn't mean it won't work somewhere else. So pick it up, recycle it. All your characters accidentally TPK'd. You'd have to get on with it and deal with it somehow. So
it's interesting actually. Sometimes with games, I will never reuse the material. I will write
if it's lame.
Yeah, well, yeah. Obviously, sometimes I will write material which is specifically for players, and quite a lot of my campaigns are really specifically written for a group of players or the group of characters that they're playing, and that material is difficult to reuse, and it kind of feels like it's not going to be as effective, and so I just never use it again. I just write a new campaign or pitch new ideas to people.
Yes, some of the stuff you have is very, very niche. They are definitely character based, and that was definitely a one-off character. That was, sometimes you come across character, you think, yeah, that's a trope, everyone plays something similar. Sometimes you come across character and you think, holy crap, that's amazing. I would never have thought of that, and what you designed for that is very specific to that character or that particular group or that particular setting, and it will never, ever, ever come up again. But it doesn't mean you can't take an idea away from that. So
yeah, I think like a lot of specific ideas get washed away, but you still have much of like the background of the fucking image that we're talking
like the
about.
bone of the idea.
Yeah. Oh yes, you definitely have the bone of the idea. But the tip of the idea still needs to be informed, along with the
Valanda, your fault.
veins,
Your fault.
thick, heavy veins. Any news on D&D Beyond? It's going into its second phase. Twitch integration looks awesome, and I haven't heard anything more about payment. But that's pretty much where I am on the issue. Still waiting to see the next update coming out soon. Another question was, what about a modern day to fantasy through a scientific portal, like you sign up when you get tested on, only to go to a fantasy realm? That sounds like the plot to
Who Wants to Feature Nerd, actually.
Yes, it is.
I was
100%. That was the other one, but I didn't want to bring it up in chat.
What's the Arnie movie from the 80s?
There are many of them, Will.
No.
There are many Arnie filmings from the 80s.
This one was remade recently. It's called someone in the chat will know. And he goes to Mars, and he's like got to find a spy. Total Recall. I think Total Recall is the one. And he goes like, it's cool, fancy realm. Yeah, I could totally see that. That would be sick. That'd be cool. Yeah, like fantasy bleeding into real world again is like the cool way of doing like modern day stuff. I think I could see that happening. And portal ideas in general are like really cool.
Yeah, I think someone was saying is essentially the Stargate idea of doing stuff. And yeah, pretty much 100% the opening plot to Once a Future Nerd. Go check that out. It's genuinely hilarious and very, very cool.
I am a bit biased, but yes, I completely agree.
Of course you're biased, but it is good.
Yes.
Yeah, I like the idea of portal stuff in general, and incorporating that into games is something that I'll do quite a lot of the time. Or I'll just use the excuse of different planes to be different, basically, realms or different.
Actually, the portal idea is a really great way of avoiding the travel mechanic. Because you have your base of operations, your boo, and it's like, well, you've got to get from A to B, and no one likes walking so much, so you have to come up with a way to deal with it. It's like, actually saying that, it was Adventure Zone came with a great way. They shot them out of a fucking cannon, and that's a great way to avoid all that crap. I think, portals is a great way of avoiding that travel mechanic. Is like, having to travel to this zone, bam, and then off you go.
I'm like the complete opposite of that. Like, I really dislike teleportation pretty much everywhere, and I really dislike it in travel in particular.
I think as travel, for me, though, can be exceptionally boring unless your group has something they need to discuss, because it gives them that perfect opportunity to go, I need to deal with this as a character, I need to talk to you about it, and it allows character development, but sometimes you just don't need that. Sometimes my character is okay. She's fine with drinking. It's not a problem. And then you move on and it's not a big deal. Sometimes you just don't need that, especially if you're not playing a very heavy RP-based game. You're just going for the laughs or whatever. So you don't always need it. It's a great way of avoiding it if you want to get rid of it. Yeah,
travel is all about pacing, basically. And when to bother about mechanics with it and when to bother to actually do it is important as well. Sometimes I'm bored, I'm like, let's just go to the place. Other times there are actually really important things that need to happen along the way, and it is something that really gets overlooked quite a lot of the time, I think, and it's an important aspect of I kind of took this methodology, I suppose, when I started playing like role-playing games like Skyrim. I'd never like teleport over there because you miss all the cool shit that's along the way.
Always walk.
And you know, I take that in pretty much all the games as well. Is that there's always cool stuff that's going on in the world, and sometimes you just want to get to the place, and that's fine. You know, you teleport there, and that's good. But I did devise a travel mechanic on the Encounter Roleplay website, featured on the DM's blog, which you can check out on iTunes, other places that they have it. We talked a good long time about travel, how to make it interesting, because I think it can be really, really fun and really exciting, and it's often something that just gets kind of swept under the carpet as that's boring, let's not do it. But I think it can be quite interesting, and there's a couple of ways of doing that. that add to the game rather than take away. And sometimes travel just takes away. It's just boring stuff. You don't want to describe 20 sentences of what the countryside looks like. I'm a big fan of basically whenever they're only ever talking about something if it's actually important or if it's going to add relevance to the plot, and they're only going to have encounters when it's actually relevant to the plot. So I don't like random encounters either. In general, I don't like the idea of just fighting something for the sake of fighting something.
I'm fully with you there.
Yeah.
It just there's no point.
Slows everything down.
If you need to do something for pacing, especially if you're doing like a convention game, again, a completely different way of playing a game, sometimes you need to extend it out by like 20 minutes, so you stick in a fight, which can be done in 10. They're never going to know exactly how many points on it. It doesn't really matter. But I tend to avoid the travel mechanic. I only ever really have it in game to allow my players to do that character interaction stuff. I don't have them assaulted by anything random unless it was going to happen anyway. Like, I wanted to have them, talk to the customs officers because I want them to be searched because they have contraband on them. That was always going to happen, but I'll allow them like the 5, 10, 15, however long they want to role play that character interaction stuff. But generally, I don't find it adds a whole lot to the game other than, other than occasionally giving them like a very cool thing to fight, which in my opinion they were going to be fighting or dealing with anyway, or allow them to have that character information mode. But sometimes you play games where it's not heavy RP based and you just want to go, well, you're at the beginning, off you go.
Yeah.
Go through the portal, fuck off.
Yeah. We have the unique thing too, like with streams and for podcasts and stuff, you want to streamline the story and move it along. So random encounters specifically for us is a little rough to handle.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to bog down, we don't want a whole episode of a random encounter that doesn't really mean anything, because then it's just wasting the audience time in a sense. But
exactly.
for your games at a table, that's completely your prerogative of if you want to do a grind or not. But I'm fully with you. The random encounters, they don't feel as natural as when you actually plan something ahead.
Yeah, I've often found the world just feels so very empty when I just go from one location, and now we're here, and now we're here again, and now we're in the other place, and there's almost nothing in between. It's like a series of locations which happen, and then a series of things which just happen to a character, and then happen to a character, and then we're in another place. Look, it's different. And that kind of feels very kind of devoid for me.
You can avoid that is by actually not having something which is 3 weeks away. If it's 3 weeks away, then have something actually written down that happens in those 3 weeks. Maybe they come across a traveling wagon and they need assistance or something. So if you're going to have them set really far away, have something for them to do and plan it out as a proper session. I encourage you
to read my travel mechanic and give it a try sometime, because it's actually nothing to do with the DM. It's all based on players. And it's basically, what are you guys doing, and what is something that happens to you guys, and it gives them agency in the game, and it allows them to add elements into the game which wouldn't necessarily be there. It keeps them involved, teach them a bunch of skills as well, I think, and encourages a lot of group work. So that's something I use quite regularly, especially with newer players, to get them involved in the story and get them to buy in to things that are happening. And it only takes 2 minutes as well, so it's not like it's a 20-minute sort of encounter where you roll 10 fucking times. Here's a quick skill challenge, mental kind of challenge, basically. What's something that happens, and then they get thinking, and sometimes that's an encounter. Rarely though, usually it's an NPC encounter, or just something that they cite. For instance, they're actually a nest of Aracocas in the vicinity, flying up above us, and that's all there is, And it's like, oh, cool, we've got a new band of creatures in this area. I'll mark that down for something later on. And I think it just adds a little something to travel, which kind of spices it up a bit, rather than being, I just traveled to this place, or everything's within a day, and that's super convenient. And I like I've always loved the Tolkien aspect of travel, in that you see everything, you experience everything, and it feels like a real quest to get to somewhere, and like everything in the world is trying to eat you. And actually, if you guys haven't checked out Realm RPG from Modiphius Entertainment, that is a perfect example of a brilliantly crafted little role-playing game set in a small location, which is basically all about a series of really cool locations and how you get there, and how you may end up dying on your way to get there. because half of the adventures happen along the way before you get to the adventure itself, and that's always quite fun. Let's see what else we got. Any news on D&D Beyond? I think we covered most of that. New shit coming out, Twitch integration. I remember on the day when it came out, when I was live streaming it, people were like, why do we have to use Twitch for D&D Beyond? I can't believe I have to sign into my Twitch account. Well,
it's like, do you realise what you're watching this on?
Yeah. Yes, also, curse, Twitch, Twitch integration, crazy stuff, you know? I'm excited for D&D Beyond in general, but I'm still cautious to see exactly where the pricing ends up and how much I end up paying for my digital copies of the books, which I will inevitably buy on D&D Beyond, along with Roll20 and physical copies. So there's going to be it's going to be a pain in the ass buying 5 copies of everything as usual, but hey, it'll be interesting. Any closing thoughts, sentiments on Tomb of Annihilation and Xanathar's Guide to Everything as we kind of wrap up tonight's session here? Also, if you guys in chat have any last questions, feel free to fire them our way, and if you haven't followed yet, hit that follow button and join us. But yeah, let's go to Josh. You're summarizing your things, your thoughts.
Quick summarize would be, I would be excited to try out the adventure. I don't know when I would get to, but I will be excited to look into it to see what they have to offer, because it is different than our normal Sword Coast adventures. But what I am more excited for, which I believe is across the board here, is the I forgot the name exactly.
Xanathar's Guide. It's close enough. Call it Xanath. It's close enough.
Xanath's evil book of people. I'm more excited for that personally, because I want to have more player options for both the players at my table and when I'm actually a player as well, because I like to do both.
Doesn't feature a dice roll and ability to roll. I don't know. We'll see if that does actually. Yeah. Granolas Guide to Everything. Everything healthy.
No.
Similarly, echoing the excitement. Yeah, I don't know, Raz. It's definitely buying the books 3 times. Similarly excited for Tomb of Annihilation, but yeah, cautiously excited as usual. Try not to buy into too much of the hype. Excited to see how much of what's been said is, true, I guess. And see how much content is in it in regarding the world. I think the world is perhaps the most interesting thing for me, rather than the adventure itself. So how much info is there on cult and environs is probably be the barometer of the most value that I find from Tomb of Annihilation and Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Interesting, yeah. Although I'm not sure exactly how much new Unearthed Arcana stuff will we be seeing. I don't think there'll be too much of it, but hopefully there's enough which has been reimagined and redesigned to be fully balanced, brought into the book itself to make its value for money. Hopefully it's not another Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide. You guys know how much that book was shit, in my opinion. So hopefully it's got some weighty content to it and has some value for money, basically, in what you're getting, aside from the free Unearthed Arcana, which has already been released. Philanda.
Well, I will stick along my usual. I don't really play modules. Be interesting story-wise. Build up some lore. That'd be pretty cool and really rad. But yeah, I'm definitely in there for Xanath's Guide to Everything, because that just looks really rad and be interesting to see more player options out there for people. And that's what I would personally be more interested in looking at and buying if I were to ever buy another D&D book.
Yeah.
Or be sent one.
Yeah, Cook, we're super salty about that. I'm kidding. The problem is we're in the UK. Still trying to figure out how long it takes to bring a 10 to 20 campaign. We still don't know what level Tomb of Annihilation will be at, so I suspect it might be a slightly more mid-tier level campaign, but I don't know. Do you prefer playing D&D RPG games sober with a clear mind, or something in you? I don't mind having a drink. Usually after a couple, I'm pretty smashed. So then it devolves. I did 38 vodka shots on a stream, on a 24-hour stream once, so lightweight my ass. But generally it really depends on the game. It depends on the situation. If we're all having a laugh, then yeah, we'll be drinking. But usually not. Yeah, usually I mean, usually with streaming as well, I'd be clicking so many fucking buttons and multitasking so much I kind of need to have some of my wherewithal with me. Except when it's 24-hour streams, in which case, let's get fucked. Josh?
Normally, I usually have coffee, especially if I'm DMing, because I like to keep my energy up. But if I am to drink, it's usually just to have one, maybe two. I will never get to the point of like drunk or tipsy because I like to be engaged. That's why I'm there. I get to play so infrequently that I want to enjoy and remember what happens.
Right.
And that goes for the players in the group too. I don't want anyone to not have to remember like what's going on and such. I feel like if one person is drunk or two and the other half of the table isn't, then that causes some friction at the table. So we just like it to be balanced. The one drink can really kind of loosen you up for RP stuff, which is great. But for me, usually it's coffee because got to keep the energy.
Yep. And Rolanda?
Contrary to popular Xana's belief, I don't actually drink all that much. I rarely ever drink, only on very, very special occasions. I think our 21st episode I might have had a drink, and that was basically it. But I've had people at my table being so hammered we actually had to stop the game, and that it didn't exactly ruin it because everyone was drinking and I was happily going along with it because they started drinking and I wasn't, and it was okay because I was getting into the thing for it. But I can understand why people would do drink, because our entire group, they do have a drink or two while they're playing. It just helps to loosen them up, get rid of that inhibition, because sometimes if you're playing like a quite emotional scene, it can be really awkward because you're sitting in front of a bunch of your best mates just pretending to cry as an elf. That could be a little bit daunting and uncomfortable for some people, so I can understand why people would do it. I can also understand the argument why you shouldn't drink at table. There's a big decisiveness on some of the stuff I've read about it, but yeah, I'm perfectly happy with people drinking as long as they don't ruin the game and everyone's having fun. That's all good. But if I'm doing streaming stuff, if I'm DMing, I tend not to ever drink because I need to keep my head clear with what's going on.
Yep, fair enough. Yeah. As with most of these things, it depends is the answer to pretty much every question you could ever ask us about D&D. Really depends. You tell me.
All in moderation.
Yeah, drink safely, guys. Drink responsibly. More question for you. Can we get a 2-hour episode for episode 50 or slightly longer episodes at Milestones? We'll see. I'll think about it.
Oh, God.
I'll think about it.
Oh, God.
Usually we're up until like 6 a.m. recording, and by the time we finished, I'm like super grumpy. I want to sleep.
You can see it in his face. He starts to feel excited at 6 a.m. He and I both like...
Everyone starts dying at the end of episodes.
Yeah.
And at the end of sessions.
It's like the third episode we record.
Die.
Me and Will are basically half asleep and the other guys are about to go to bed.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all been up like from stupid AM and it's just like,
Yeah, we shall see.
Doing a 2-hour episode would be interesting, but
I'm sure for exciting particular ones, then yeah, I'm sure we can figure something out. But if you guys enjoyed today's show, please do hit that follow button and join us. We'd appreciate it. I've mentioned this in the past. I'll be tweeting about it in case you forget, but there will be some disruptions with streaming schedule. As you can see, my green screen and lighting is gone. Basically, all of the things in my house are gone because I'm flying on Wednesday to America or Sydney. So streaming disruptions will be as follows. Tomorrow, no beginner's place. We start at 4 p.m. Tuesday, same deal. Hopefully I'll be able to get back in time for Call of Cthulhu. It'll most likely be an hour late if we do. Or worst case scenario, we'll just be doing Tyrant's Thrall finale. And then Wednesday and Thursday I won't be streaming, so you'll be missing out a couple of days here and there as I move and set up back in America. But once we are there, my friends. And we should be all set and clear for the future. Better internet, better setup, better room, better pretty much everything. So really excited for the move. Really excited to get everything sorted. But there will be a couple of days turnaround where you can expect to just catch up all of the content on YouTube and the podcast. So if you're missing me, as I'll be missing you. And of course, you can keep up my shenanigans and the house move and stuff like that on Twitter. But let's go around the cast and crew. Let's go with Josh. You got a podcast, right? You do things.
I got 2 of them.
Yeah.
So on Twitter, you can find me personally at Xyroxis the Beard, which has been my name in chat. I'm going to put the information in chat as well. It's XIROXIS the Beard. The 2 podcasts I work on are Taking Initiative, which is our D&D podcast, which we are currently running through Curse of Strahd because I felt like doing something evil. That is at TI_pod on Twitter. And then the second podcast I work on is an award-winning audio drama based in the fantasy world, where a couple of kids from Pennsylvania got transported into a fantasy world where elves have southern accents and are assholes. That is, again, the Once and Future Nerd @_TOAFN on Twitter, and I'm the editor for that one.
Awesome stuff. And Valanda.
You can find me on Twitter at AA_Unola. You can find me here every Sunday. What day is Sunday, isn't it? Yeah.
Every
Sunday.
Every Tuesday. Really?
I have no idea. On Tuesday evenings, you can find me on Skag's Twitch channel where we play Lord of the Rings, and we're playing the Council, and it's really fun because I play an elf with a stutter. It's amazing. It's so fun. New episode of AA drops tomorrow, so please go to iTunes and listen to that. Or you can find me on my own channel, Bloodthirsty_Puppets, on a Friday night. That's where you can find me.
Awesome stuff. Yeah, Judo, there'll be content on a YouTube channel. Maybe I'll get a couple of videos up there. Foster, Wednesday and Thursday are out to tide you guys over, but I do apologise. I'm afraid I'll be in the air, so wish me luck with the move and all that stuff. And I'll see you guys tomorrow at 4 p.m. for Ruin Nation. Very excited for that game. Pretty fun. Set in the apocalypse. Mike's playing. I guess it's okay. But yeah, other than that, guys, thank you for joining us. And until tomorrow, try not to roll too many nat ones because we want to be laughing when you do. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Bye.